Chapter 159. A shudder ran through Su Ming's body, and a roar immediately rang out in his head. That voice was incredibly ancient, as if it contained an endless amount of time. It was as if it had been floating in the river of time for countless years, as if it was echoing within his soul. It made Su Ming's heart tremble, and at that moment, confusion appeared in his eyes. The hoarse and ancient voice turned into an endless echo in his head and spread through his entire body. It was as if a layer of ripples was spreading out from Su Ming's body, causing him to freeze. "You are finally here, Han Mountain's ancestor." Su Ming's expression immediately changed. Fortunately, he was wearing the mask and had his head lowered, so no one noticed his abnormality. The voice continued echoing in Su Ming's head, and eventually, like thunder, it made Su Ming's face turn pale. It was as if he had entered a nightmare. "Sir Mo Su?" Dongfang Hua's nervous voice came from beside Su Ming. Dongfang Hua was the first to notice Su Ming's abnormality. The moment Su Ming stepped onto the red ground, he stood there unmoving, as if he had frozen. "It's nothing. The ground in the tunnel is a little strange." Su Ming took a deep breath and walked forward on the red ground. Before him, Nan Tian and the others also turned their heads around to look at Su Ming with puzzled expressions. Nan Tian narrowed his eyes and looked at Su Ming carefully. He did not quite believe Su Ming's words, but he could not find any clues. "It's your first time here, Brother Emo. It's only natural that you find it strange. The deeper we go into the tunnel, the redder the ground becomes, as if it's dyed in blood. If we're in the tomb of Han Mountain's ancestor, then it'll be even more so." As Nan Tian spoke, he turned around and continued walking forward. Dongfang Hua followed by Su Ming's side. His heart pounded against his chest. He was the closest to Su Ming just now. That was why he could sense something that Nan Tian and the others did not. During that instant just now, he seemed to have seen Su Ming's hair floating without wind. The mask on his face also changed in a strange manner. He could not describe what it was, but it was as if the mask had suddenly come to life. He did not dare say anything. He just followed beside Su Ming and moved forward carefully. Su Ming remained silent along the way. He did not need to ask. Based on Dongfang Hua, Nan Tian, Xian Luan, and the others' expressions, he could tell that they had not heard the ancient voice just now. He was the only one who had heard it. Su Ming could vaguely feel a faint calling to him coming from the end of the tunnel. As he got closer, that calling became stronger. Han Mountain's ancestor really isn't dead. That voice must be his, but why did he say? Finally, Su Ming clenched his right fist tightly. His nails dug deep into his palm, and it hurt. But this pain, compared to the bewilderment brought about by the huge mystery in his heart, made him feel even more that he really existed. He needs pain to make himself not empty. He did not want to think about Han Songzi's pitiful and complicated gaze. He did not want to think about why Nan Tian did not mention that the god of berserkers had sealed the fire berserkers with the eternal creation art. He didn't want to think about the words finally in that ancient voice. What the hell is happening to me? Just what have I forgotten in my memories? I didn't forget anything, but Su Ming clenched his fists even tighter. It was just as Nan Tian had said. As they moved forward, the red on the ground became brighter. By the end, it was so red that it was terrifying, as if they were walking on a frozen sea of blood. Nan Tian might have come here many times, but every single time he walked on the red ground, he would feel uncontrollably terrified. Even if he knew that there was no danger in the tunnel, he still could not help but pay full attention and be on high alert. Behind him, Cho Nu's face was pale. His heart pounded against his chest. The red on the ground made him feel irritated, but he could still hold it in. Xian Luan was the same as Su Ming. This was their first time here. He looked at the red and tried not to look at it, but once they were some distance away, he still could not ignore the bright red on the ground. As he looked at it, a ferocious expression appeared on his face. Vaguely, he could see the faces of the countless people he had killed on the ground, and they were letting out shrill cries filled with hatred towards him. Xian Luan let out a cold harumph. He was not bothered by it. He was cruel by nature and had killed far too many people in his life. He decided in his heart that he would see just how many illusions would appear on this path. All of you will have to calm your blood and focus your minds on this path. This path will not cause any physical harm to us. The strange thing about it is that different illusions will appear in everyone's eyes, but they won't be strong. I've gone through it many times. I'll just have to bear with it. Nantion's voice seemed to have traveled through mountains and rivers as it floated towards them. A smile appeared on Dong Fanghua's face. That smile was filled with pride, and there was also a hint of obsession within it. He walked past Su Ming and took a huge step forward. As he looked at the red on the ground, his smile grew wider. He saw himself successfully reaching the transcendence realm on the red ground. He saw himself successfully refining the 13th piece of his spine and turning it into a real berserker bone. Then he broke through the barrier and reached the berserker soul realm. He saw himself standing between heaven and earth and laughing towards the sky after he reached the berserker soul realm. He saw countless berserkers kneeling on the ground and worshiping him. These people were looking at him respectfully. They were looking at him, Dong Fanghua, forming his own statue of the god of berserkers the moment he reached the berserker soul realm. Su Ming walked forward quietly. There was a dazed look in his eyes. As he continued moving forward, the red on the ground made him see the familiar tribe and the familiar dark mountain. He saw Lei Chun smiling in a simple and honest manner. He saw Lu Di leaning against the side of the house with his eyes closed as he played a mournful Sun song. He saw Chun Xin holding Bei Ling's hand with a sweet smile on her face. Bei Ling had his back turned towards him. There was wind blowing at his hair. He saw Wu La. She was not a very pretty girl. Her face was covered in blood as she fell into his arms and mumbled Emo Su's name. He saw the little girl holding Pippi. She blinked and whispered in his ears with a childish voice. Big brother Su Ming, Tong Tong has a secret. I'll tell you once you come back. He saw the elder. He saw Bai Ling standing alone in the snow. He saw Bai Ling's hair slowly turning white. He saw the beast Fong she held in her hands. The snow and wind were strong and blocked his vision, but it could not stop Su Ming from seeing the tears on Bai Ling's face. As he watched, Su Ming bit his lip. All of this beauty and sadness were revealed on the red ground. At that moment, Su Ming suddenly shuddered. He saw a black hand descending from the sky on the ground, and with a swing, those familiar people and everything he was familiar with were reduced to shreds. Behind the shreds was a dark void, and within that void was a pair of eyes. Those eyes were looking at him coldly. There was a merciless look in those eyes, as if there was no emotion in the world contained within them. The only thing that existed was the aloofness of a ruler. You disappoint me greatly. Su Ming's heart trembled. An anxiety he had never felt before rose within him, causing him to snap out of his daze. The path was still the same, and the ground under his feet was still red. Nantion stood there with his eyes closed, unmoving. His expression was strange. Sometimes he would smile, sometimes his face would contort, and sometimes he would be incredibly pleased with himself. It was as if he was enjoying his own scheming. Xianluan leaned against the wall with a ferocious look on his face. There was a hint of cruelty on his face, but there was also a hint of helplessness. Chonu knelt on the ground, panting harshly. There was a fierce glint in his eyes, as if he was extremely angry, but there was also a hint of cowardice in that anger. Dong Fanghua looked as if he had gone mad. He kept pacing back and forth with his arms spread wide open, laughing loudly. There was a satisfied and boastful look on his face. He was immersed in his own world and did not want to wake up. As he looked at these people, Su Ming had an urge. If he attacked at that moment, he could easily kill all of them, including Xianluan and Nantion. Nantion wouldn't allow himself to fall into a hopeless situation, but he's lost his consciousness and immersed in this state. He's been here many times. He wouldn't make this mistake. If that's the case, then he's either doing this on purpose or something that even he doesn't know about has happened in this place. Su Ming closed his eyes and remembered the ancient voice in his head when he entered the red ground. He also remembered the things he saw when he was in the illusion of the red ground, and eventually he saw a pair of aloof eyes in the darkness, along with the words spoken in the distance. Is the change here because of my arrival? Han Mountain's ancestor, why did you do this? Su-ming opened his eyes and looked before him. This was the end of the tunnel. Before him was a smooth stone wall. There were numerous ravines on it, forming complicated pictures. Waves of dark light spread out from the stone wall. When Su-ming looked at it, he could feel a powerful force blocking off the stone wall. This should be a corner of the seal, Su-ming mumbled. He swept his gaze past Chou Nu, Dongfang Hua, Nan Tian, and Xianluan. He had a feeling that there was something hidden within their expressions and actions. They're the same as me. They saw their own pictures on a red ground. Su-ming fell silent. The thing that left the deepest impression in his mind was the pair of aloof eyes and the words he saw at the end of the pictures he saw. You disappoint me. There was not a hint of emotion in those words. They were as cold as ice that would never melt. Why did those words and that gaze appear in my picture? Why did I feel so nervous when I heard those words? So nervous and scared? Su-ming did not choose to kill. Instead, he stood there and looked at Dongfang Hua first. He watched as Dongfang Hua walked back and forth, and the prideful look on his face was clear. We see different things, but our experiences are the same. Perhaps I can find the answer from them. Fourth chapter, for chapters with 12,000 words, please get double monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 160. Dongfang Hua continued walking back and forth before Su-ming. His laughter was filled with joy, and it was completely different from his previous cautious and attaching himself to the powerful. At that moment, he was like a completely different person. That prideful look on his face and his sparkling eyes revealed the secrets in his heart. Today, I've reached the Berserker Soul Realm. Since all of you are here to witness the ceremony, then I'll let you see with your own eyes how a Berserker in the Berserker Soul Realm forms his own statue of the god of Berserkers. Dongfang Hua shouted loudly and lifted his arms, waving them around madly. Su-ming looked at Dongfang Hua quietly. He did not know much about this person, but after interacting with him for the past few days, Su-ming could tell that this person was just as cautious as him. At the same time he longed to become stronger, he also enjoyed the feeling of being complimented before the week. What he's showing right now is his true self. But how is this similar to the illusion I saw just now? Su-ming fell silent. He looked at Dongfang Hua for a long time before his gaze fell on Chou Nu. Chou Nu knelt on the ground and panted harshly. His face was ferocious as he let out a low growl, giving off a feeling of rage and madness. However, there was a cowardice and light in his eyes that did not match with his expression. If he's showing his true self right now, then Chou Nu has the word Nu in his name. I don't know if this is his natural name, but if it isn't, then it means that what he needs the most is Nu. Because he needs it the most, then it also means that what he lacks the most is rage. Su-ming mumbled. He had a vague feeling that he had grasped something, but there was still a veil separating him from it. What do I need the most? Su-ming closed his eyes, and after a long while, he opened them slowly and looked at Nan Tian. Nan Tian stood there with his eyes closed. His expression kept changing. Prideful, twisted, sullen, cold smirk. All sorts of expressions fused together, but most of them were prideful. This is a person who likes to scheme and scheme. I haven't been in contact with him for a long time, but based on these few things, I can tell that he's very confident in his own intelligence. He always thinks that he can control people through clues, but they have no choice but to follow him. Su-ming looked at Nan Tian, looked at his expression, and mumbled to himself. And him, Su-ming's gaze fell on Xianluan. He's a cruel person. This can be seen when he brought out the souls of He Feng's parents and crushed them when He Feng challenged the chains of Han Mountain. He's cruel, fierce, and he'll kill anyone he disagrees with. He's also a powerful berserker in the transcendence realm, which is above those in the blood solidification realm. With his personality, he must have killed a lot of people in his life. Su-ming saw the brutal look on Xianluan's face. It was as if he loved killing and was passionate about it. However, under that brutality, the hint of helplessness on Xianluan's face stood out. "I understand now," Su Ming mumbled softly to himself. There was anguish in his voice. He had always been an intelligent person. When he fused the expressions and actions of the four people together, there was no way he would not know what his answer was. What you flaunt the most is actually what you lack the most. What you want people to know the most is actually what you want the most. Xianluan is cruel, fierce, and bloodthirsty. This is what he flaunts, and it's also what many people know, but in truth, this is what he lacks the most. He might have killed a lot of people, but all of this is to hide his helplessness. He lacks a sense of security. He doesn't think he's safe. He needs to flaunt his kills. He needs people to know that he loves to kill, that he's cruel by nature, to hide the fear in his heart. He needs cruelty. That's why he sees cruelty. He's afraid. He longs for safety. That's why a hint of helplessness appears on his face. Su Ming mumbled to himself in anguish. He understood now. Nantian flaunts the most and wants people to know the most is his schemes and his intelligence. But in truth, this is also what he lacks the most. He wants people to know that he's a schemer, but this also means that this is what he desires the most. There's the word anger in Cho Nu's name. He's usually angry, and he'll fly into a rage at the slightest provocation. This is what he flaunts. He wants people to know, and it's also what he desires, because the real him is very weak and cowardly. Su Ming looked at the fear on Cho Nu's angry face and mumbled, "I really understand now. Through them, I found out what's in my heart." Su Ming leaned against the wall by his side and looked at the top of the tunnel with a wry smile. "I'm always indifferent and calm myself down. This is what I lack, and it's what I desire. I don't want to think about what happened in the tribe. I use indifference to cover it up, but these are the most fragile memories in my heart. Perhaps I've truly lost some of my memories. The illusion I saw on this bloody path, the gaze that appear at the end, and those words. Why do they make me so nervous, so mindful, so afraid? Perhaps this is what I don't want anyone to know the most in the depths of my heart. It's like Xianluan's fear and Cho Nu's weakness. Then, what do I need the most?" Su Ming asked himself, but soon he found his answer, because when he said those words, that gaze and those words appeared in his head. "You disappoint me greatly, so this is the real me. Then I want to know who that gaze belonged to. Why did he say those words? And what are the memories I've lost? In fact, if I've truly lost some of my memories, then is there a possibility that my memories have also been changed? I want to know, is there?" Su Ming closed his eyes. His heart was aching in pain, and he was afraid. He was afraid that his memories of Dark Mountain had been changed, that some of them had disappeared, that they were fake. When he walked down this bloody path, he felt as if he had been baptized. It was as if he had gone through a metamorphosis and ascension. This feeling was still vague to him, but it was real. Time passed by. He did not know how much time had passed by, but Dongfang Hua no longer laughed. Instead, he shuddered and was stunned for a moment before he sat down quietly by Su Ming's side. He lowered his head, and there was a dazed look on his face. Cho Nu also stopped growling. The anger on his face disappeared and turned into emptiness. He sat by the side, lost in his thoughts. Nantian trembled and slowly opened his eyes. There was a dazed look in his eyes. After a long while, the dazed look disappeared and was replaced by shock and astonishment. He took a deep breath and looked at Su Ming. After all, he was in the transcendence realm. Once he recovered, he could vaguely remember what had happened before. In his memories, he could vaguely feel that Su Ming seemed to be different from him among these people. It was as if Su Ming had once stood before him calmly and looked at him. At that time, he did not have a single shred of power to fight back. Nantian's heart trembled. He did not know whether this was just a figment of his imagination. He would rather believe that all of this was just his imagination and that it was not real. Yet when he looked towards Su Ming, he saw him opening his eyes and looking at him calmly. Nantian shuddered. He changed. Nantian's breathing quickened slightly. He could not tell what part of Su Ming had changed, but he had a strong feeling that the current Su Ming was incredibly terrifying. That terror did not come from his power, neither did it come from his schemes. It was just his gaze. When Nan Tian looked at Su Ming, there was a look of superiority in Su Ming's eyes. This was not a deliberate act, but something that came naturally to him. He had never imagined that there would be someone who would look at him once. It was just a gaze, but it could make his heart race and make his mouth dry up in anxiety. "What's the matter?" Su Ming asked softly. "No, it's nothing." For the first time, Nan Tian felt uneasy because of Su Ming's words, and he quickly answered. Su Ming did not speak. He closed his eyes. Xianlun looked at Su Ming with a complicated gaze. He had woken up at the same time as Nan Tian. In fact, their feelings were incredibly similar. He had also felt that when he was immersed in that state, Su Ming had looked at him calmly. In fact, when Su Ming looked at Nan Tian just now, Xianlun's heart had also trembled and his breathing had quickened. However, there were still some differences between him and Nan Tian. He felt that all of this was because he had just woken up from that state. It was not Su Ming who had changed, but he himself. Yet no matter what, Xianlun still chose to remain silent. He sat down cross-legged and did not speak a single word. Time passed by. 2 hours, 4 hours, the end of the tunnel was still silent. Dong Fanghua and Chou Nu had also completely recovered. However, the dreamlike memories were difficult to get rid of. When 20-something hours passed by, suddenly, the entire tunnel trembled. Muffled rumbling sounds came from above. Dust fell from the sky, as if the tunnel was about to collapse. The stone wall at the end of the tunnel was flashing with a dark light. It was as if it had become incredibly unstable, as if it was about to crumble at any moment. This sudden change immediately shocked Xianlun, and he focused his attention on the stone wall. Nan Tian also had a grave expression on his face as he looked at the stone wall. Desire rose in his heart. That stone wall was a door. It was a door that led to the place where Han Mountain's ancestor either isolated himself or passed away. That door had not been opened for hundreds of years, perhaps even longer. The existence of the seal cut off all outsiders' footsteps. Yet now, Lake of Colors tribe had arrived en masse, and with some unknown method, they were clearly trying to break the seal and rush into the place where Han Mountain's ancestor was. Muffled rumbling sounds came continuously from above. The dark light on the stone wall shone even more intensely, causing the people's faces to flicker in and out of focus. Chou Nu, Dong Fanghua, Xianlun, and Nan Tian all had their gazes trained on the stone wall, waiting for the moment Lake of Colors tribe broke the seal, and the seal in this place would disappear. Only Su Ming still had his eyes closed. It was not that he did not want to open them, but the ancient and hoarse voice appeared in his head once again. Come, I've waited for you for a long, long time, Destiny. Today I'm going to explode again. This is the first update. I'm asking for monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 161. The sky was shrouded in fog. The unfamiliar stars shone with a dim light. Several large cracks tore through the sky, telling all those who lifted their heads to look at the sky that the sky was fake and did not exist. Under the starry sky, there was a gigantic building in the plains surrounded by numerous valleys. That building could not be seen clearly from the distance. There was fog surrounding it, blocking everyone's sight. However, if anyone got closer, they would be able to see that the building was a gigantic sword-shaped object. It was stabbed diagonally into the ground, and the part that was revealed was thousands of feet tall. It was completely black and made from some unknown material. There were many scale-like objects all over it. If one were to call it a sword, it would look like a sword, but if one were to call it a ship, it would also look like a ship. There were 3 towering altars in the shape of a tower around the sword ship. The altars were white, black, and red, and they were all different. Compared to the weathered feeling that the sword ship gave off, the 3 tower-shaped altars were clearly built later. At that moment, there was no one on the white altar, and the black altar was the same. Only the red altar shone with a red light that pierced through the fog and enveloped the area, causing anyone who looked at it to be dyed red. no matter how far away they were. There were dozens of people floating around the red altar. One of them was Yin Luan. She wore a red robe, and her hair floated in the air. Her eyes shone brightly as she looked at the sword ship. Han Fei Zi accompanied her quietly behind her. Her face was covered by a veil, so no one could see any changes in it. They could only see that her eyes were sparkling. It was quiet around them, but there were muffled booms coming from the distance. If anyone followed the sound, they would be able to see the people from Tranquil East, Puqiang, and Lake of Colors fighting in two places quite far away. We won't be able to hide from Tranquil East and Puqiang for long. They should have noticed the changes in this place by now. We don't have much time, Han Fei Zi said softly. Even if Han Song Zi and the powerful berserkers from Puqiang tribe are being held back by the previous tribe leader and the elder, she's still a member of Freezing Sky Clan. We can't kill her. We can't kill her. Han Fei Zi swept her gaze past Yin Luan. I know what I'm doing. I won't hold you back from entering Freezing Sky Clan. Yin Luan chuckled and turned her head around to look at Han Fei Zi. I'm curious, though. Just what is it about that new guest of Tranquil East tribe that attracted you to the point that you used your final request to make me give up on my interest in him? Although Yin Luan's smile was alluring, the coldness in her eyes could only be seen by those who understood her. You don't lack a guest, but I lack a companion, Han Fei Zi said calmly. Although her voice was pleasant to the ears, it was still icy cold. Companions? Don't tell me you're thinking of... Yin Luan covered her mouth and laughed. She didn't finish her sentence. Instead, she gave Han Fei Zi a meaningful look. Han Fei Zi closed her eyes and softly said, Time's up. Hurry up and open this restriction. Break the slave race seal so I can leave in peace. Yin Luan smiled and turned to look at the giant sword ship. Her eyes shone with a strange light. She raised her right hand and pressed it against her chest. She knelt in midair. Her expression was no longer beautiful, but filled with sincerity. Set up the rune, Yin Luan said softly. The moment she spoke, thunder rumbled in midair, and an endless amount of red lightning appeared out of nowhere. As they intersected with each other, they filled the sky and continued swimming about. At the same time, the dozens of Lake of Colors tribe members behind Yin Luan floated up into the sky as if they were attracted by the lightning in the sky. They sat down cross-legged in midair. When the swimming lightning appeared, it was a little messy and flashed in all directions. But once the dozens of Lake of Colors tribe members floated into the air, all the lightning surrounded them and connected them, forming a complicated picture in the air. That picture was the relocation rune. Han Fei Zi, Yin Luan shouted softly. Han Fei Zi did not make a sound. She took a step forward and charged toward the picture in the sky. She sat down cross-legged at the center, took a deep breath, and closed her eyes. Statue of the god of berserkers from Lake of Colors, please descend. Statue of the god of berserkers from Lake of Colors, please descend. Statue of the god of berserkers from Lake of Colors, please descend. The voices came from the dozens of people in the sky one after another. They fused together and turned into a low roar that reverberated in the area. At the same time, all the members of Lake of Colors tribe were sitting cross-legged on the mountain where Lake of Colors tribe was located, right beside Han Mountain City in the land of South Morning. There were berserkers among them, and there were also normal tribe members. All of them sat down with their eyes closed. At that instant, they bit the tips of their tongues at the same time and coughed out blood. Their blood rose into the air, and drop by drop, it floated into midair from within the tribe and rapidly gathered together. The outline of a gigantic blood figure appeared on the mountain belonging to Lake of Colors tribe. It was a gigantic face of a woman, and it was filled with an awe-inspiring presence. The moment she appeared, the light of relocation shone around the gigantic woman's face, causing the figure to slowly turn into an illusion. The mountains belonging to Tranquil East tribe and Puqiang tribe were strangely silent in the face of this phenomenon. They did not show any signs of wanting to investigate. At that moment, on the platform at the summit of the mountain belonging to Tranquil East tribe, the tribe leader of Tranquil East tribe, the elder of Tranquil East tribe, and the many powerful berserkers of Tranquil East tribe were standing there quietly. There were even 3 old men who looked like they had just crawled out of their coffins. They did not look towards Lake of Colors tribe, but at a middle-aged man dressed in blue robes before them. The man's hair was very long. He had his hands behind his back, and there was an ice mountain embroidered on his robes. I know that all of you are unwilling to accept this. The man was very handsome. He looked at Lake of Colors mountain in the distance and spoke slowly. But this is the decision of Sect Elder Sunday. You can be unwilling, but you have to obey. We wouldn't dare. If the envoy comes, then Tranquil East Tribe will definitely obey. But Han Sang-zi is still there. The one who spoke was one of the 3 old men. His expression was calm as he spoke hoarsely. Would anyone dare hurt her? The middle-aged man smiled faintly. At that moment, the same scene was happening in the mountain belonging to Puqiang tribe. Several powerful leaders of Puqiang tribe were standing respectfully behind a young man dressed in black robes. There was a mark of a scorpion on the young man's face. The scorpion looked alive, as if it was a living creature. Sect Elder Wang has given his orders. Puqiang tribe is not allowed to participate in this matter. At the same time, within the hidden dimension of Han Mountain City, the relocation rune formed by Han Fei Zi and the others sitting cross-legged while summoning the red lightning. Red light surged into the sky. A strange pressure gradually appeared. As the light from the relocation rune shone above them, the woman's face that originally appeared in the mountain belonging to Lake of Colors tribe gradually descended. As it appeared, a large amount of ripples appeared in the sky and spread in all directions, causing the world to tremble even more violently. Soon, the moment the light from the relocation rune reached its peak, the gigantic woman's face appeared in the sky. The woman's face was several thousands of feet big, and she looked at the ground coldly. Open the tranquil east gate. Yin Luan's expression became even more devout. She lifted her right hand and pointed towards the white altar of Tranquil East Tribe in the distance. The moment she pointed, a red light immediately flashed outside the altar of Tranquil East Tribe. For people in red appeared out of thin air. In their hands were several heads that were glaring angrily at death. The 4 of them acted at the same time and threw the heads on the altar, then slammed their palms against the altar. With that one slap, all the heads exploded and turned into a large amount of blood, dyeing the white altar red. These heads belonged to the guests of Tranquil East Tribe who had entered this place. Once they were killed by Lake of Colors tribe, they used a unique method to gather all their blood in their heads. At that moment, their heads exploded and dyed the tower red. The dyed Tranquil East Tower trembled, and a large amount of cracks appeared on it. Roars traveled out, and a vast amount of power spilled out from within the tower. The moment this power appeared, the weather looked as if it was about to change. This was the power of the countless guests' chi that Tranquil East Tribe had accumulated over the hundreds of years they had activated this place. Tranquil East Tribe had originally planned to work together with the other 2 tribes to activate the sword ship once they gathered enough chi. But now, it was cleverly taken away by Lake of Colors tribe. The gigantic woman's face in the sky opened its mouth and sucked in a deep breath in the direction of Tranquil East Tower. Immediately, the power charged towards the woman's face and was completely absorbed by it. Open the Puqiang gate. Excitement appeared in Yin Luan's eyes. She had been waiting for this day for a long time. Lake of Colors tribe had also put in a lot of effort for this operation. Puqiang Tower was originally a black altar, but at that moment, as the heads exploded, it turned red and shattered just like Tranquil East Tower. A large amount of chi that had been accumulated by the guests for hundreds of years spilled out and was instantly absorbed by the woman's face in the sky. The last to be absorbed was Lake of Colors tribe's altar. Booming sounds reverberated in the air. Cracks appeared on all 3 altars, and the instant they exploded after losing all the chi they had accumulated within them. The woman's face in the sky turned from indistinct to tangible. At that moment, Yin Luan sucked in a deep breath and leaped towards the woman's face. In an instant, she fused with it and appeared at the center of the woman's brows. Teleportation seal break. A strange light shone in the eyes of the gigantic woman's face. She descended from the sky with a bang and charged towards the sword ship that was stabbed into the ground diagonally. As she swiftly approached it, a dark light immediately appeared on the sword ship. That dark light was the seal. It had not spread outwards, but flowed on the sword ship like flowing water. With a loud bang, the statue of the god of berserkers from Lake of Colors crashed into the sword ship. If we don't understand the principles behind Han Mountain's ancestors' seal, it'll be difficult to break it. This is a power that is completely different from us berserkers. Even if Lake of Colors tribe has come to understand the relocation art and the power of our entire tribe, it'll still be difficult for us to break it. But with the power of the statue of the god of berserkers, the power of relocation, and the hundreds of years of research by Lake of Colors tribe, we managed to deduce that we can make the seal disappear for an instant. With the rune against the seal, during that instant, we can enter. Second update, asking for monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 162. The moment the dark light on the sword ship that was stabbed into the ground touched the gigantic woman's face that was formed by the statue of the god of berserkers, the dark light on the sword ship shuddered and gradually stopped flowing, showing signs of solidifying. At the same time, the color on the gigantic woman's face also rapidly faded away. In just the span of a few breaths, it looked as if most of its power had been drained. Judging by the speed at which it was draining away, it seemed like it could not completely solidify the dark light and flowing water on the sword ship. The speed at which the dark light on the sword ship froze was slowing down. In fact, there were even some parts that were no longer frozen and were showing signs of recovering. A glint appeared in the eyes of Yen Luan, who was at the center of the woman's brows. A regretful look appeared in her eyes. She lifted her hands and tapped the woman's face that had fused with it. The moment she did so, the red light on the woman's face shone brightly and turned into a powerful ray of red light that shot into the sky. That red light charged into the galaxy and turned into a gigantic wave that spread out in all directions. In the blink of an eye, it had almost covered the entire sky. A long string of laughter traveled into the air, and an indistinct figure appeared within the red light that shot into the sky. That figure quickly gained corporeal form and became clear almost in an instant. It was an old man dressed in a red robe. He had a head full of white hair, but his face was flushed red. There was a gigantic gourd on his back, and he took a step out of the red light. The moment he appeared, the entire sky and earth trembled. The galaxy looked as if it could not withstand the force and was about to shatter. The ground also trembled, and many of the valleys in the area collapsed due to the rumbling sounds. "Greetings, Left Preceptor Zhou." Yen Luan spoke respectfully. As the old man appeared, the woman's face that had fused with Yen Luan's face also faded away. The relocation art to break through the four-dimensional layers is indeed mysterious. Lake of Colors tribe, since you managed to understand this art and offer it to me, your tribe will be the first to do so. The old man in red robes laughed loudly. His eyes sparkled as he stared at the sword ship that was rapidly recovering its dark light. "Hong Kong, did you think that Freezing Sky Clan can't do anything to you just because you're hiding here? Did you think that we berserkers don't understand the 4 layers of dimensional seal, and that we can't kill you even if we know that you're here?" The old man in red robes laughed long and hard. He lifted his right foot and took a swift step towards the sword ship on the ground. If it was a complete 4-layer dimensional seal, then I would indeed not be able to break it. But Lake of Colors tribe of the berserkers have understood your dimensional seal, and now there's a flaw in it. Right now, I can break it. The red-robed old man closed in on the sword ship. He raised his right hand and waved it in the air. A red ghostly claw appeared above the sword ship and reached for it. This phantom claw was definitely not something a living creature could possess. At the instant it appeared, great desire and respect appeared on Yen Luan's face. She was not the only one. Han Fei Zi and the other members of Lake of Colors tribe regained their freedom after the woman's face disappeared. When they looked over, their expressions were filled with respect. Berserker Soul Realm. I can form my own statue of the god of berserkers. I am Berserker, and Berserker is me. Hanfei Z's eyes lit up as she mumbled. The ghostly claw closed in and grabbed the sword ship. The ghostly light flowing on the sword ship suddenly trembled, and at the same time, it let out a thunderous roar. The ghostly light collapsed like fragments, like water droplets, and fell off the sword ship and tumbled to the side. As the sword ship shuddered, the seal on it crumbled. Hong Kong, ever since you came to the land of berserkers 8,000 years ago, you have been restricted by the laws formed by the second god of berserkers. You can only bring out the power of the middle stage of the Berserker Soul Realm, which is the soul transformation realm of your immortal realm. You are ranked 147th on the ranking board of the foreign lands. Today, I, Zhou Shan, am the left preceptor of Freezing Sky Clan. I have come to take your life under the orders of the third god of berserkers. The old man in red robe's voice was like thunder passing judgment. At the same time his voice spread out with a bang, he turned into a long red arc and charged towards the sword ship that had lost its seal. With a loud bang, the old man rushed in. Yin Wan's eyes sparkled, and she rushed in as well. Behind her, Hanfei Z and the other members of Lake of Colors tribe also rushed in. At that moment, at the bottom of the sword ship that was buried deep underground, there was a tunnel that had been pierced through vertically many years ago. Now, at the end of the tunnel that was right next to the sword ship, as the seal was broken, the stone wall crumbled with a bang and shattered into numerous pieces that tumbled backwards. It's broken. Nan Tian's face was filled with excitement. He took a step forward, looking as if he wanted to be the first to rush in. Yet the moment he moved, Xianlun had already rushed forward and overtook him, becoming the first to enter. Nan Tian and Cho Nu followed closely behind. The two of them rushed into the entrance that was revealed after the stone wall was gone. Su Ming opened his eyes. There were red capillaries in his eyes. He stood up quietly and looked at the entrance that led to the isolation grounds of Han Mountain's ancestor. A complicated look appeared on the face hidden under the mask. In his ears, the voice calling out to him became anxious and kept calling him over. The voice of Han Mountain's ancestor is completely different from the voice that appeared in the illusion I was immersed in on the Red Path. It's clear that it's not the same person. Su Ming closed his eyes slightly, and uncertainty appeared on his face. Sir Mo Su, Dong Fonghua originally wanted to step in, but when he saw that Su Ming did not move, he hesitated for a moment before he asked in a low voice. I need to think. If you want to go in, then go in first, Su Ming said calmly. Dong Fonghua hesitated. He looked at the entrance, and a hint of desire appeared in his eyes. He wanted to become stronger, and there was a chance before him. If he let it go, he would not be able to accept it. He waited for a while. When he saw that Su Ming was still deep in thought, he gritted his teeth and wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming before charging into the entrance and disappearing in the blink of an eye. Su Ming was the only one left at the end of the tunnel. He stood there quietly as the anxious voice calling out to him echoed in his ears and mind. After a moment, Su Ming opened his eyes. Should I take the risk or not? Han Mountain's ancestor isn't dead, and he's calling out to me. This is strange and unpredictable. Along with the strange things about the Red Path, I can tell that it'll be incredibly dangerous if I go in. Su Ming mumbled. But this might be my only chance to know just which part of my memories are missing and what happened to me. Su Ming paced back and forth at the end of the tunnel with sparkling eyes. Hefeng once said that those who practice Han Mountain's ancestors' art can form a spirit body. Once I have a spirit body, I can cast a strange art. It's just like when I hadn't completely subdued Hefeng in the past. If I wore that mask, I would have been affected by Hefeng's art. He also mentioned this art to me later. It's called possession. Only those with spirit bodies can cast this art. They can take over another person's body and flip through their memories during the process of possession. Those with spirit bodies will only manifest themselves after practicing the branding art. Among all the people I've met, besides Hefeng, only Han Mountain's ancestor has one. Su Ming's footsteps faltered, and a resolute look appeared on his face. I can take the risk, but I can't take the risk. I don't need to have a complete method to protect myself, but I have to have a certain level of confidence before I can take the risk. Memories may be important, but these are just my guesses. If my guesses are true, then it's fine, but if I'm overthinking it, then giving up my life for nothing isn't worth it. Han Mountain's ancestor is calling out to me so anxiously. Let's not talk about whether there's some sort of connection between us. This is also related to the fact that this place was broken. Besides, he's calling out to me, so I don't think he's just trying to lure me in and kill me. Then besides some other reason I don't know, there's only one reason why he's doing this. It's because of the possession He Feng mentioned. The elder once taught me that if I don't understand something, I can try putting myself in the other person's shoes and use their experiences as a basis to figure out their thoughts. If I'm Han Mountain's ancestor and I've stayed here for many years without going out, then I can only watch as the 3 slave tribes rebelled, and I can't do anything about it. Then he should be injured, and it's not a light injury. Besides, Lake of Colors tribe has broken the seal. Freezing Sky Clan is behind Lake of Colors tribe, so someone from Freezing Sky Clan must be involved in this as well. There's a high chance that Han Mountain's ancestor will die this time. There's a high possibility that he's calling out to me for the possession He Feng mentioned before. By possessing my body, it was able to avoid being killed. As for why it chose me, perhaps it was because of the flesh and blood meridian inside of me. Does that mean that the little cyan sword, the blood-colored grass, and the other creatures also chose me because of that? He lured me here step by step. A chilling glare appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He won't be able to live for long. If Lake of Colors tribe dares to break the seal, then they must have full confidence that they can kill him. The safest method is to wait here and not enter. Before long, Han Mountain's ancestor will die. This is the safest method, but if I do this, then I won't be able to obtain Han Mountain's ancestor's training method, and I won't be able to obtain the answers I want. I won't be able to obtain the memories I've lost. A cold sneer appeared on Su Ming's lips. Once he sat down cross-legged, he lifted his right hand and tapped his chest. Immediately, the qi in his body started tumbling, as if raging waves were crashing into his body. Almost the moment Su Ming tapped his chest, a ball of dim light was forced out of his body from his chest. Within that dim light was He Feng's spirit body. He had his eyes closed, as if he was in deep sleep. Su Ming looked at He Feng's spirit body and touched it with his right hand. A wave of ripples spread out and swept past He Feng's body. He Feng shuddered and slowly opened his eyes. Master! He Feng, who had just woken up, still had a dazed look in his eyes. Yet once he saw his surroundings clearly, especially the entrance at the end of the tunnel, he shuddered. This is He Feng, Su Ming said slowly. His voice was low, and there was a threatening tone to it. I need you to do something for me. Su Ming looked at He Feng and said in a low voice, Master, please tell me. As long as I can do it, I won't refuse. He Feng quickly focused his mind and spoke cautiously, but he was a little nervous. He did not know what Su Ming wanted him to do, especially since he was forcefully waking him up in this place. Third update, please give me monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 163. Su Ming paused for a moment before he suddenly said, Come and possess me. His words were so shocking that He Feng was completely stunned. His mouth fell open, and he only recovered after a long while. Nervousness and fear immediately appeared on his face as he quickly explained, Master, I didn't do anything wrong. Before I fainted, I was still fighting for you. I told you to possess me, so do it. Don't talk too much. Su Ming looked at He Feng coldly. His face might have seemed aloof, but in truth, he was secretly observing He Feng's reaction. He Feng was still at a loss. He looked at Su Ming with a wry smile and hesitated for a moment before he knelt down on the ground. There were no tears in his eyes, but they still shone brightly. Master, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Master, please forgive me this time. I won't do it again. Su Ming's eyes shone brightly. Through the thread of connection between their souls, he could feel He Feng's nervousness and fear. There was no joy within it. Master, you can't possess me. If I possess you, it'll mean that you'll be erased. I, if you're erased by me, I won't be able to live either. I'll be killing myself. Hifeng did not know how to explain himself for a moment. I'm not asking you to possess me completely. When I tell you to stop, you can stop, Su Ming stated unhurriedly. This was very important to him. It would decide whether he would enter the entrance and whether he would face Han Mountain's ancestor. He had to familiarize himself with the process of possession and see whether he could find a method that would give him a certain level of confidence before he could take the gamble. The reason why he chose Yifeng was because he had thought about it carefully. Master, I've never possessed anyone before. I only know the method. Are you sure you want to try? Yifeng hesitated for a moment. When he saw Su Ming nodding his head, he gritted his teeth and did not dare resist. His spirit body moved and turned into a ray of dark light that charged towards the center of Su Ming's brows. In an instant, it touched Su Ming's forehead. The dark light shone brightly, as if it had fused with him. Su Ming shuddered and slowly closed his eyes. Master! Master! Voices calling out to him echoed in Su Ming's head. He opened his eyes. This was a world shrouded in fog. Only the area of less than 100 feet around him was empty. The fog tumbled around him, and muffled rumbling sounds reverberated in the air. This is Master's mind, and also the place where the first step of possession will appear. Yifeng's cautious voice traveled into Su Ming's ears. He turned his head around and saw Yifeng's spirit body standing beside him. There was a mighty pressure coming from his spirit body that made Su Ming slightly uncomfortable. He lowered his head and looked at himself, and he was stunned. At that moment, he no longer had a body. He was just a faint ball of dark light. However, there was a line in the depths of that dark light. That line was connected to Yifeng's spirit body, giving Su Ming a feeling that with just one thought, Yifeng would immediately die. Besides that line, Su Ming also saw something else. That thing was rather indistinct in the faint ball of dark light. Even Su Ming himself had to sense it carefully before he could notice it. Su Ming focused his attention on it, and the moment he did so, he immediately felt as if his consciousness was being sucked away. He was dragged into the faint, dark light, right beside the indistinct object. It was a black stone, and it was covered by the dark light, which was why it was difficult for people to see it clearly. It's that. The moment Su Ming saw the stone, his heart trembled, causing the dark light to flicker violently. Yifeng was instantly shocked. Yifeng was terrified. He was afraid that Su Ming would accidentally touch the line in his spirit ball and die here. That would be too much of a waste. Su Ming observed the stone. This thing had been with him for many years and had always been hanging around his neck. He did not expect to see it here. After a moment of hesitation, Su Ming tried to get closer to it once again, but the moment his consciousness touched the stone, Big brother, big brother, big brother, I can feel big brother. The familiar female voice echoed strongly in Su Ming's consciousness at that moment, causing him to tremble. That voice seemed to have been buried in his heart for a long time. It could not be wiped away, neither could it disappear. In the past, when it came from his dreams, it had always made him feel that it was indistinct and distant. But now, the voice was so strong that it was as if it was right before his eyes. He had no idea how much time had passed before Su Ming regained his consciousness. He left the stone hidden in the dark light and remained silent for a long time. Master, Yifeng was already extremely nervous. At that moment, he spoke carefully. Let's begin, Su Ming said calmly. Yes, Master. This is also the first time I've entered someone else's mind, but your mind is a little different from mine. Why is there so much fog? Yifeng looked at his surroundings. He was afraid that Su Ming would misunderstand. After hesitating for a moment, he looked at Su Ming. Master, possession is actually very simple. I just need to devour the spirit ball of the possessed. But don't worry, I wouldn't dare devour it. It'll be the same even if I fuse with it, all right? Su Ming nodded. I've gone too far. He-Feng gritted his teeth and charged towards Su Ming with his spirit body. However, judging by his respectful demeanor, it did not seem like he was trying to possess him. The moment He-Feng's spirit body closed in on Su Ming, they quickly touched each other. He-Feng shuddered, and Su Ming's consciousness trembled. He felt as if thunder was roaring in his mind. Soon after, the fog around him suddenly started tumbling about furiously, and the booming sounds coming from within shook the sky and earth. As the fog tumbled about, Su Ming and He-Feng's spirit bodies rapidly melted. This was not devouring, but fusing. The two people's consciousnesses fused together so that they could not be separated from each other. If this continued, then what would eventually appear would not be He-Feng or Su Ming, but would instead be the combined consciousness of both of them. Su Ming felt himself becoming weaker. He felt as if he could disappear at any moment during the fusion, but at that moment, he did not care about any of this. He only stared at the fog outside. He could clearly see that as the fog continued tumbling about, a part of it started thinning out. Gradually, most of the thin fog dissipated, revealing the moving pictures and memories hidden under the fog. He saw himself, Nan Tian, and the others stepping into the secret tunnel. He saw himself walking up Tranquil East Mountain. He saw himself sleeping at the top of a desolate mountain with the blood moon in the sky. His memories were like flowing water, flowing backwards bit by bit before Su Ming. He saw himself refining He-Feng. He saw himself fighting against Han Feizi. He saw himself meditating calmly when he noticed He-Feng and Xianlun closing in on him. He saw the chains of Han Mountain in Han Mountain City. He saw Feng Mu bringing herbs to him. He saw himself recovering from his injuries and capturing Feng Mu. His memories continued replaying in his mind until some of the moving pictures showed Su Ming sitting in the mountain cave and healing his injuries, not moving a single inch. Master, I can't hold on anymore. If this continues, I'll really fuse with him. He-Feng's anxious voice echoed in Su Ming's mind. And Master, what's in your spirit sphere? The more I fuse with him, the stronger the rejection. What? What is this? It's sucking me. Ah! Terror suddenly appeared in He-Feng's voice, as if he had just encountered something unbelievable and shocking. Su Ming's mind trembled. He could feel He-Feng's terror. This was also the first time he noticed that the stone in his spirit sphere was producing an increasingly stronger suction force. It was not sucking in him, but He-Feng, who was trying to fuse with him. Su Ming split a part of his mind to suppress the stone's suction force. His weak but firm voice traveled into He-Feng's spirit sphere. Continue. Master, continue. He-Feng no longer spoke. Instead, he continued fusing with the spirit sphere while trembling in fear. At that moment, his heart was filled with regret, and he was also terrified. He did not know what was in Su Ming's spirit sphere. The feeling he got from it was one of terror he had never felt before in his life. He had a feeling that if he continued like this, then Su Ming would not even need to kill him. He would lose everything. Su Ming looked at the fog outside. Once the fog thinned out, new changes appeared in his memories as he meditated. It was a day filled with thunder and rain. There were a few vultures circling in the sky. There was a person who seemed to be dead lying on the mountainside. The vultures hesitated for a long time before one of them landed on the person's body. When the other vultures arrived, the person who seemed to be dead suddenly grabbed the vulture's neck. He opened his eyes. The scene changed once again. This time, it was still a day filled with thunder and rain. It was no longer day but night. Bolts of lightning crackled in the sky, and suddenly, a gigantic crack appeared in midair. That crack was like a gaping mouth, and there was a ghastly air about it. Its appearance made the rain in the sky freeze in midair. Even the bolts of lightning froze in midair. They hung in the sky, unmoving. Su Ming became nervous. At that moment, he had forgotten about everything else. The scene before him became the only thing in his mind. A person struggled to crawl out of the dark crack. That person was covered in blood. The moment he appeared, Su Ming saw that person with the help of the stilled lightning. His eyes were wide open, and the light in his eyes was one of grief. He laughed sorrowfully and fell from the sky. He rolled down from the top of the mountain and was stopped by a big stone halfway up the mountain. He fell there, unmoving. That person was Su Ming, Master. I can't take it anymore. The scene in the fog changed once again. This time, it was pitch black, as if it was not a piece of land or sky. Yet at that moment, He-Feng let out a pained scream. The thin fog before Su Ming's eyes instantly thickened, and the scene disappeared. The empty space of 100 feet had turned into an empty space of 150 feet. He-Feng was curled up by the side, looking incredibly weak. He looked at Su Ming pitifully, and there was still fear in his eyes. If I persist any longer, I'll die. Thank goodness it's just a fusion and not a devouring, or else. He-Feng shuddered and thought in his heart. As he looked at Su Ming, he did not know what to say. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he nodded towards He-Feng. Thank you. Let's go out. 4 chapters for 2 consecutive days and a total of 25,000 words. Was it worth voting for a monthly ticket? To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 164. Su Ming, who was sitting and meditating at the end of the tunnel where Han Mountain's ancestor isolated himself on the sword ship, opened his eyes. There was a slightly dazed look in his eyes. He was immersed in Su Ming's body instead of his mind. He was very weak. This time, he had to fall asleep once again, or else he would disappear. My memories only stop at the moment when I first woke up a few days before I captured the vulture. There was no crack in the sky during the rainy night, no sad laughter. When I woke up, I was already lying on a mountainside. Perhaps the memories I'm missing are in that crack. Su Ming looked at the entrance beside him, and determination appeared in his eyes. He-Feng didn't seem to be fake. The stone in my spirit sphere. Su Ming touched the mysterious black stone hanging on his neck. I'll take the risk. Su Ming took a deep breath and stood up. Without any hesitation, he took a step towards the entrance. He had already wasted some time. Now that he had made his decision, he could not waste any more time. He had a strong feeling that he might really be related to Han Mountain's ancestor. He might be able to find an answer to the questions he had been puzzled about in this place. Come, come. The ancient voice was filled with anxiety. It was even clearer and stronger than when it came from the outside world. It echoed in Su Ming's head. The moment he stepped into the entrance, his vision immediately became blurry. When everything became clear, he saw a shining galaxy before his eyes. The end of the galaxy could not be seen, and it shone with a brilliant light. Where is this? Su Ming was stunned. It was dead silent here, and he was the only one there. This is the 3rd layer. Come, come, let me see you. The ancient voice became clearer as it echoed in Su Ming's head. At the same time, all the stars in the galaxy before Su Ming's eyes started moving at a speed visible to the naked eye. Slowly, after the countless stars moved, a floating piece of land appeared before him. Su Ming had never seen anything like this before. The confusion in his eyes grew stronger, but he soon calmed down. Su Ming fell silent and walked forward. He did not know how long he had been walking. Neither did he know whether he was walking towards the floating piece of land or whether the floating piece of land was walking towards him. As he got closer and the floating continent was right before his eyes, Su Ming stepped on it and looked around him. The surrounding mountains rose and fell, and there was the sound of a river flowing. The ground was covered with green grass, and a fragrant smell wafted into the air. On the grass, there was a person in gray sitting cross-legged. This was a person of unknown age. His entire body was withered, and there were only a few strands of hair on his head. His clothes seemed to be on the verge of decay. He sat there with his eyes closed, as if he was dead. I've finally waited for you. A hoarse voice echoed throughout the land. Han Mountain's ancestor? Su Ming took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down as he looked at the seemingly dead person. You can call me Hong Kong. An ancient voice echoed in the air. Su Ming could not tell where the voice came from, but when it fell into his ears, it caused a tremor in his head. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he asked, "Why did you summon me here? I'm not the one who called you to this place. You're the one who called yourself to this place." This time, the voice did not come from the area around Su Ming. Instead, it came from the mouth of the dried-up person before Su Ming. When he said those words, he opened his eyes. It was a pair of dull eyes, but within those eyes, which were as deep as the stars, was excitement, desire, and anticipation. "Take me away." A hoarse voice came from Hong Kong's mouth. That voice sounded like two withered trees rubbing against each other. It was devoid of moisture, and it made those who heard it feel uncomfortable. Su Ming looked at the skeleton-like Han Mountain's ancestor and fell silent. "According to our promise, I've completed my mission. I've waited for you for a long time. Take me away." It seemed as if it had been a long time since Hong Kong spoke. His words were spoken with difficulty, and anticipation appeared on his calm face. "I've left my home for 8,000 years. I want to go home." Han Mountain's ancestor's body trembled faintly as he mumbled to Su Ming. Just as Hong Kong finished speaking, the entire galaxy suddenly trembled. Loud booming sounds came from the stars in the distance, and they started fading away at a speed visible to the naked eye. "They're here. Hurry." Hong Kong's breathing quickened. Su Ming remained silent. There were too many things he did not understand in Hong Kong's words. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes as he asked unhurriedly, "How can I take you away?" "You." Hong Kong was stunned. He stared at Su Ming, and uncertainty and disbelief gradually appeared in his eyes. It was as if Su Ming's simple words had exceeded his expectations. "Who are you?" Hong Kong's eyes immediately turned fierce. A strong pressure spread out from him. Under that pressure, Su Ming was like an ant in a storm. He felt as if he was about to suffocate. Su Ming took a few steps back. His face was pale. He looked at Hong Kong and remained silent for a while. When the booming sounds in the distance got closer, he said softly, "I am Su Ming. Destiny." "That's right, it's you." Hong Kong let out a sigh of relief. The pressure disappeared, and the fierce look in his eyes turned into anticipation. He did not know that he had heard Su Ming's name as Destiny. "Your Destiny. You know how to take me away," Hong Kong said with great difficulty. At that moment, the last star in the galaxy outside was extinguished. At the same time, that muffled rumbling sounds came from the land where Su Ming and he stood. It also started trembling violently, as if there was someone outside who was continuously attacking them with an invisible method. "Damn it, they're too fast." Hong Kong's face twisted. He struggled to stand up and took a step towards the sky. "If you're here, they won't be able to see you. They won't disturb you when you cast your arts. I'll stop them. Your Destiny. You have to send me back. You have to send me back. You have to send me back." As Hong Kong spoke, he turned around abruptly. For the first time, a ferocious look appeared in his eyes. He cast a glance at Su Ming and charged towards the sky. Distortions appeared in the dark, starless sky beyond the floating land. As Hong Kong walked out, a large amount of ripples appeared in the distorted sky. As Hong Kong walked out, a violent boom resounded in the air, and the old man in red robes from Freezing Sky clan walked out. "Hong Kong!" A low roar reverberated in the air. The old man in red robes had a solemn expression on his face, and, at the same time, he lifted his right hand. The dark sky around him instantly turned into 5 different colors. As it rotated, it turned into a gigantic vortex. Booming sounds reverberated in the air, and with Hong Kong as the center, the vortex spun rapidly, turning into a shocking force. Hong Kong let out a shrill roar and swung his right hand forward. Instantly, a red light appeared under his feet. Within that red light was the red meadow. As he swung his hand, the meadow spread out rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, it covered a circular area of 100 lis. At the same time, Hong Kong panted harshly like a beast that had reached the end of its road. There was a fierce glint in his eyes, and he pressed his right hand against the ground. The moment he pressed down, the meadow within a radius of 100 lis tumbled, and a roar seemed to come from within. A ball of red mist rose from the spot where Hong Kong's right hand pressed down. That mist quickly gathered together and turned into a three-headed python that charged out with a roar towards the old man in red robes. Immediately after, Hong Kong pressed his left hand against the meadow, and a battle cry immediately reverberated in the air. Red mist rose from the meadow once again and turned into a man in red armor. That man held a blood-red sword in his hand, and once he appeared, he charged towards the old man with fighting spirit in his eyes. Hong Kong had not finished casting his divine ability. He bit the tip of his tongue and coughed out a huge mouthful of blood. That blood fell on the red meadow, and it instantly caused the meadow within a radius of 100 leagues to go berserk. It squirmed rapidly and grew at a shocking speed, spreading out like hair. How dare you berserkers fight against us immortals? Hong Kong spread his arms wide and stood on the rapidly growing red meadow. His face may have been dried up, but there was an indescribable presence spreading out from him. When Su Ming saw this, his heart pounded against his chest. This was the strongest battle he had ever seen besides the shadow of the galaxy in Dark Mountain. Hong Kong's arts made his heart tremble. The old man in red robes remained calm. He lifted his right hand and pointed at the center of his brows. He did not point at Hong Kong, but at the center of his brows, drawing a line of blood from the center of his brows down to the tip of his nose. The instant the crack appeared, a roar came from the void behind the red-robed old man. A gigantic, illusory figure seemed to be tearing through the void. It was a ghost that was about 10,000 feet tall. Its entire body was bright red. It looked like a giant, but it was more like a ghost that was formed from a statue of the god of berserkers. It wore beast skins and was bare-chested. When it appeared, it let out a shocking roar. At the same time, the red gourd on the old man's back floated up on its own. The stopper popped open and a large amount of black shadows flew out. Among those black shadows were the souls of wild beasts. As they wailed, they were caught by the gigantic ghost and placed in its mouth to be devoured. The moment the three-headed python and the person in red armor charged towards it, the gigantic ghost lifted its head and a fierce glint appeared in its eyes. It roared and charged towards the giant python. Once it grabbed the python with its claws, it brought the python to its mouth and bit down on it. Then, it tossed the python aside and charged toward the person in armor. Booming sounds reverberated in the air. As the gigantic ghosts fought against each other, Hong Kong's red meadow had already spread out endlessly. It shrank abruptly until it almost covered the entire space, and the booming sounds shook the sky. Su Ming took a deep breath. Before he could recover from the shocking battle, the space before him distorted and Hong Kong walked out. The moment he walked out, Hong Kong's legs shattered and turned into nothingness. His face was filled with the aura of death, but he still flew up and grabbed Su Ming. As he charged forward, he disappeared with Su Ming in tow. All of this happened too quickly. Su Ming did not even have time to dodge. He was caught by Hong Kong, and the moment he was brought away from the place, he saw another Hong Kong flying out from the sky that was covered by the red meadow like hair. He coughed out a mouthful of blood and charged into the distance. Behind him, the old man in red robes chased after him. Please recommend me. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 165. How can a berserker like you understand the way of runes of the immortals? This place is no longer a 4-layer dimensional seal. There's still half a layer here. Su Ming's vision blurred. When it became clear, he found himself in a dark place. This was a mountain cave. There was no light around him, and he could only see a little. Hurry up and send me home. I've yet to recover from my grave injuries. I've given up on my real body and only have this clone left. I won't be able to last for long. Once my real body dies and I have it left, I'll also die. Only when my clone leaves the land of berserkers will I be able to cut off my connection with my real body under the different laws of the immortals. Only then will I be able to survive. Heavy panting came from beside Su Ming. Hong Kong had a death grip on Su Ming's shoulders. His face was only 7 inches away from Su Ming's. He stared into Su Ming's eyes, and there was madness and anxiety in his eyes. At that moment, he was about to fall into despair. He no longer had his previous calmness. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he spoke languidly. I can't send you back. I'll say it one more time. Send me back. Han Kong roared and grabbed Su Ming's shoulders. Killing intent appeared on his face. If you don't believe me, then you can possess me and look through my memories to see whether I'm lying to you. Su Ming's face was calm as he looked at Han Kong. This was his goal. When he was at the end of the tunnel and beyond the stone wall, he had come to understand many things. He was uncertain as to whether some of his memories had truly disappeared. He could not ignore these things. He wanted to understand everything. However, Su Ming knew that with his current level of cultivation, it was impossible for him to know what had happened to him. That was why he remembered Han Mountain's ancestor and remembered what He Feng said. Possession. There was one thing about possession. During the process, he could forcefully look through a person's memories. What He Feng could not do, Su Ming believed that Han Mountain's ancestor could do. I want to know why there was pity in Han Tsangzi's eyes. I want to know why Nantian didn't mention the Fire Berserker tribe being slaughtered by the god of berserkers. I want to know why the aloof gaze that appeared on the red path and why those words made me nervous and scared. I want to know if my memories really disappeared. Then when did they happen? I want to know what happened in the memory that disappeared. I want to know whether everything about the Elder and Dark Mountain was just a dream. Su Ming closed his eyes, then opened them abruptly and looked at the panting Han Kong with a ferocious expression. Help me. Tell me what's missing from my memories. Also, tell yourself why I don't have a way to send you back to your hometown. Also, prove that I'm not lying to you. Help me. Tell me who I am, Su Ming said softly, and determination appeared in his eyes. Han Kong stared at Su Ming. He did not know why, but under Su Ming's gaze, an indescribable hint of wariness rose in his heart. He was wary of Su Ming's calmness at that moment. He was also wary of the fact that he had never encountered anyone who would help him possess him in his life. Simple possession and soul searching won't give you complete memories, only scattered fragments. Since you won't send me back, and since you're asking me to possess you, I'll help you this once. This clone of mine was created from a berserker. This person already possessed the power of the berserker tribe's bone sacrifice realm when he was alive. If you really want me to help you, then I can only refine you into my clone. If I die, then you die with me. If you don't die, then it's your serendipity. I'll fulfill your wish. Han Kong had lived for a long time. There was no way he would not be able to see the mysteries of this place, but he no longer had time. A hint of hatred appeared in Han Kong's eyes. He had waited for 8,000 years, but this was the result he got in return. He could not go home, could not go back to his hometown. In fact, he could die at any moment. Once his real self died in the world outside, he would not be able to survive either. Instead of dying like this, it would be better for him to refine this destiny who had given him hope and crushed his hope into his clone. Then when they died together, no matter what, he would be able to see all of the other's memories. Without waiting for Su Ming to nod his head in agreement, Han Kong lifted his right hand and pressed it against his abdomen. His entire body trembled, and with a bang, he turned into a ball of blood mist before Su Ming. The blood mist dyed Su Ming's entire body. A golden light flashed in the mist, and a small golden humanoid the size of a palm rushed out of the mist and charged towards the center of Su Ming's brows. That small humanoid was Han Kong, but its strength could not compare to He Feng's. That small humanoid had already gained physical form. It was not a spirit body, but a nascent divinity that was above the spirit nascent soul. There was a golden spine within its body. That spine may have been dull in color, but it exuded a savage presence. This item was the first bone in the body of a powerful berserker in the bone sacrifice realm, the atavism bone. Things were slightly different from Su Ming's predictions, but the end result was still the same. He did not fight back. He looked at the incoming Han Kong's nascent divinity and closed his eyes. There are very few things in the world that can be taken care of. Because there are wrongs, then there will be wrongs. I'll take this gamble. The moment he closed his eyes, Han Kong's nascent divinity touched the center of Su Ming's brows and crawled into him in an instant, disappearing without a trace. The moment it disappeared, Su Ming's body started trembling furiously. Pain appeared on the face hidden under the mask. That pain was much stronger than when Yifeng possessed him. In fact, it could not even be compared. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. Not only was his body in pain, he also felt as if there were countless bone needles crawling into his pores. He also felt as if his mind was being crushed by a mountain range. Drops of blood flowed down Su Ming's masked face under the intense pain. That was the blood flowing out of his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. The pain was indescribable, but Su Ming did not roar. Neither did he descend into madness. He sat there cross-legged, and the calmness in his eyes was that of still well. He endured the pain silently, and sensed that it did not matter whether it was Hong Kong's possession or the creation of his clone. He endured everything calmly. His vision became blurry, and he returned to the place he had been before. It was a world covered by a vast amount of fog, and there was only an empty space of 100-something feet. Su Ming was still that weak ball of darkness floating in the air. The familiar feeling and the thought of planning made Su Ming not tremble, neither was he afraid. He looked at Hong Kong's nascent divinity, which was shining with a piercing golden light that made him feel as if he was about to melt. Compared to Su Ming, Hong Kong's nascent divinity was several dozens of feet tall. When it descended, the empty space of 100-something feet around Su Ming started trembling, as if it could not withstand the pressure and was about to crumble. The piercing golden light and the tall figure made Su Ming feel as if he was in the middle of a raging wolf and could be destroyed at any moment before he could even get close. What kind of mind is this? There's so much fog. Once Hong Kong saw his surroundings clearly, shock immediately appeared on the face of his nascent divinity. He understood what this meant. He looked at Su Ming with a complicated look in his eyes. "I'll fulfill your wish." The moment Hong Kong said those words, his gigantic nascent divinity opened its mouth wide and sucked in a breath in Su Ming's direction. Immediately, the ball of darkness that was Su Ming charged towards Hong Kong. He might have been devoured, but this was still Su Ming's mind. He could still see the fog before him rapidly thinning, and his memories of coming to the land of South Morning were rapidly fading away. Will I be able to see it this time? Su Ming mumbled. It was already the end of the month. There were only a few hours left. The number of votes was no longer important. It was a good month for him to write his own book and understand his own Tao. This chapter has 2,000 words. Please forgive me. It will be released tomorrow, and the first chapter will be updated at dawn. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 166. The fog thinned out. The memories flowed by like a river. As they flowed, Su Ming's familiar memories flashed before his eyes. The memories at that moment were the most precious because the memories bloomed between life and death. They shone brilliantly during the moment of possession and being possessed. Su Ming's mind became dazed, but he continued looking forward. He wanted to know just what was contained in the memories he lost. Hong Kong was also looking at Su Ming's memories. As he devoured Su Ming's mind, he would also refine Su Ming's body into a clone that belonged to him. Su Ming saw a scene repeating itself in his memories. It was the moment he stepped into this place, and time was reflected in his memories. He returned to 4 years ago, and on that rainy night, when thunder roared in the world, a gigantic crack appeared. That crack caused the weather to change, the thunder to stop, and the rain to stop. It's here. Su Ming's mind trembled. Yifeng's ability could only allow him to see this much. He could not withstand the terrifying suction force coming from the stone in Su Ming's body and had to give up. Yet now, it was Hong Kong's turn. With Hong Kong's nascent divinity that was much stronger than Yifeng's, Su Ming hoped that he could see something different. What's in your spirit body? What is this? Suddenly, Hong Kong's voice traveled forth. There was surprise and uncertainty in his voice, along with a hint of terror and disbelief. This is impossible. The moment Hong Kong's voice appeared, the The scene in Su Ming's memories changed abruptly as the fog dissipated before him. This time, he was looking at the crack in the sky during that rainy night, and he was looking at the passage of time. The scene changed. What appeared before Su Ming's eyes was an endless expanse of darkness. Yet strangely, even though he could only see darkness, Su Ming could still feel a body floating in that darkness. The body floated there unmoving with its eyes closed. Su Ming felt a sense of familiarity from this person. He knew that this person was himself. I finally saw this place, but I'm still unconscious. That's why I don't have any memories. This doesn't count as me losing my memories. Su Ming mumbled. The scene seemed to have frozen. It did not change for a long time. The appearance of this situation made Su Ming have a bad feeling. He became nervous, and he seemed to have understood something. So many memories have stopped here. Just how many years have passed? Damn it. Just what is this thing? You want me to possess it? How am I supposed to do that? Hong Kong's shocked voice echoed in Su Ming's mind. At that moment, Hong Kong's gigantic nascent divinity was rapidly shrinking, as if there was a black hole in his body that was rapidly absorbing everything that belonged to him. Su Ming no longer cared about these things. He stared at the picture under the fog in a daze, at the darkness that was practically still and unmoving. He could not imagine just how much time had passed in this place. He had no idea how much time had passed. When Hong Kong's furious roars became weaker, suddenly, for the first time in a long time, the darkness Su Ming saw changed. The change this time originated from a hoarse, calm voice. What? The moment he heard that voice, Su Ming's consciousness trembled violently, as if it was about to collapse. The confusion in his eyes was immediately replaced by shock. He was familiar with that voice. That voice belonged to him. When did I say that? As Su Ming mumbled, he saw a memory that he would never forget for the rest of his life. In that picture, he saw himself. He saw himself standing in the darkness with a gigantic chain piercing through his arms, legs, and head. He was suspended in the air. As for the 5 chains, they extended endlessly and led to an unknown place. He saw himself with his eyes closed. Even if he was suspended and his body was covered in blood, he did not show any signs of being unable to withstand the pain. Is he me? Su Ming's consciousness trembled like never before. He noticed that the scar he left behind in Dark Mountain was not on his face while he was suspended in the air. He saw himself suspended in the air. Before him there was a gigantic head. That head was the size of several hundreds of him. It had a head of red hair and an awe-inspiring and ferocious look on its face. The head's ears were made of snake bones, and there was a mark of lightning on its forehead. There were even a large number of patterns on the head's face. They seemed to have been formed naturally, and they exuded a savage presence. The head's eyes were open. There might be a dull look in its eyes, and it might be dead, but the moment Su Ming saw the head, he felt as if the sky had fallen and the earth had cracked. It was an indescribable pressure that looked down on all lives. All those who stood before that head would have to lower their heads and worship it while trembling. However, he was still dead. A shocking crimson-red sword had pierced through the top of the head and pierced through the entire skull, revealing half of the blade underneath. At the same time, Su Ming also saw more than 9 red nails pinning the head to the bone. Su Ming looked at the head with a dumbfounded expression, then at himself, who was suspended in the air by the chains. He followed his gaze and saw a person sitting cross-legged on the hilt of the sword on the head. That person wore a wide robe, and his face could not be seen clearly. However, the moment Su Ming saw that person, his mind was filled with a chill, and that feeling turned into nervousness and fear. This is your destiny. You cannot refuse it. The cold voice seemed to come from the distance and echoed in the air. It was as if a law had descended and did not disappear even after a long time had passed. All those who did not obey the will of the law would be punished. Tian. Hong Kong's trembling and weak voice was filled with respect and fear as it echoed in Su Ming's mind. He had split up most of the power of his nascent divinity to fight against the increasingly stronger suction force coming from Su Ming's body. The remaining small portion of his nascent divinity was used to see everything Su Ming saw. When he saw the gigantic head, he was already afraid. When he saw the figure on the hilt of the sword and heard its voice, this fear became a nightmarish nightmare for him, causing him to fear and respect it to the extreme. I refuse. Su Ming saw his chained self, opening his eyes. His eyes were filled with a deathly stillness, so calm that it was frightening. The moment he opened his eyes, Su Ming saw a line of blood under the eyes of his chained self. That line of blood seemed to have appeared out of thin air, but very soon it was completely revealed. It was the scar he had left on his face when he was in Dark Mountain, the scar that he did not want to disappear. You disappoint me greatly, but you cannot refuse my will. The person sitting on the hilt of the sword that pierced through the gigantic head lifted his head. Su Ming could still not see his face clearly, but he could see the merciless and aloof gaze in his eyes. The moment Su Ming saw that gaze, a roar rang out in his mind. A sharp pain tore through his body, causing everything he saw to crumble abruptly and turn into an endless amount of shards. Dition, you lied to me. You lied to me. At the same time, a shrill scream of pain reverberated in the air. That voice belonged to Hong Kong. As he screamed, his voice rapidly grew weaker, and eventually, it was as if it had disappeared into thin air. Everything disappeared. Booming sounds continued ringing in Su Ming's head, as if there were 100,000 bolts of lightning roaring continuously in his head, causing everything he saw to disappear. The fog before him rapidly thickened, and it was as if nothing had ever happened. Only that gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the fog of memories and fall on Su Ming's body. You disappoint me greatly. Su Ming shuddered and opened his eyes. His entire body was drenched in sweat. The moment he opened his eyes, blood trickled out of the corner of his mouth, and he could not hold it in any longer and coughed out a huge mouthful of blood. Even his mask fell to the side when he coughed out that mouthful of blood, revealing a pale and confused face under the mask. On his face, under his eyes, the scar he had left in Dark Mountain turned red. Rapid breathing came from Su Ming. He panted harshly, and his eyes were bloodshot. He supported himself with his hands on the ground, and his body trembled. After a long while, Su Ming wiped off the blood at the corner of his mouth and looked at the dark mountain cave around him as he mumbled, "Is this a small part of the memories I lost? Some of my memories were really wiped off. Could the person who wiped off my memories be the Dition Han Kong spoke of? Who is he? Where did he come from? Who is he to me? In my lost memories, what was it that I rejected? And that head under his body, that head clearly belongs to a berserker. Who is he?" Su Ming trembled. He remembered what Nantian had said about the second god of berserkers losing his head. "It's just a head, but it makes me feel as if I'm looking at heaven. Could it be that this head belongs to the second god of berserkers? Dition. Before Hong Kong died, he shouted that Dition lied to him. Just who is this Dition? Su Ming mumbled. The confusion on his face was like a tidal wave that drowned him. Who am I? Destiny, Su Ming. Su Ming lifted his head swiftly. He did not roar, but continued mumbling in a voice that only he could hear. Who am I? Su Ming laughed brokenly, lost. He was lost. He was like an injured beast that always had to exist alone. He was like a person who had lost his memories and would never believe in what he saw. He was like a tree that had grown up and had forgotten its own growth rings. He was like the water in his palm that could not withstand a single wave and would be thrown away. Su Ming knelt down on one knee, as if he had lost himself. He originally thought that he would get his answer, but there was still a deeper sense of confusion within the answer. Is this destiny? It's like a ball of hair. I can't find its head, and I can't find its tail. Su Ming closed his eyes. He could not understand. He did not want to go out. He would rather sit alone in the darkness and search quietly. At that moment, he ignored the fact that due to Hong Kong's death, besides some of his shattered nascent divinity being absorbed by the stone in his spirit body, the rest of it had turned into glittering sparks that surrounded his Atman and spirit body as they were slowly absorbed. He also ignored the fact that due to Hong Kong's death, the atavism berserker bone that belonged to a berserker in the berserker soul realm was slowly melting into Su Ming's body due to Hong Kong's death. As it melted, the blood in Su Ming's body started circulating and absorbing it at a shocking speed. It was just as Hong Kong had said, if you don't die, then it's your serendipity. It's not easy to write, and it's slow. Every single burst of power is exchanged with an extra amount of time and exhaustion. I need monthly votes at the beginning of May. To be continued. If you like this work, please come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 167. In the blink of an eye, a month passed by. The hidden grounds under Han Mountain City became ancient a month ago. From then on, it was no longer secret. People could enter and leave the place at will, and they would no longer run into any sort of seals. The secret that had surrounded Han Mountain City for many years had disappeared. Besides the leaders of the 3 tribes and a limited number of tribe members, very few people knew of the great change that had happened in this place a month ago. They only knew and only saw that a month ago, a shocking boom reverberated in the air, and a person flew out from the canyons under Han Mountain City. Behind that person was a gigantic phantom that roared and chased after him. At the same time, when the person flew out, a person from Tranquil East Tribe and Puqiang Tribe rushed out to intercept him. The battle did not last long. In the end, the person died and his head was cut off. The outsiders did not know who that person was, but the leaders of the 3 tribes knew that this person was Han Mountain's ancestor. The death of Han Mountain's ancestor caused the 3 tribes to no longer belong to the slave tribes. They obtained the freedom they had been longing for, and they no longer needed to keep their tribes in Han Mountain. They could develop further. Lake of Colors tribe obtained all the things left behind in the giant sword ship of Han Mountain's ancestor. Freezing Sky clan did not ask for these things. The old man in red robes only took the sword ship and left with his people. Lake of Colors tribe had also gained an epiphany regarding the 4th layer of the relocation art. When faced with the silent Tranquil East tribe and Puqiang tribe, Lake of Colors tribe chose to migrate. They gave up on their control over Han Mountain City and sent out a notice to dismiss all their guests. They would use a year's time to leave. Besides this, Lake of Colors tribe gave all the herbs in the originally hidden grounds under Han Mountain City to Puqiang and Tranquil East. They did not take much with them, leaving most of them behind to ease the tension between the 3 tribes. After all, the 3 tribes had developed a certain degree of alliance after hundreds of years of entanglement. If they broke down because of this, then the losses would outweigh the gains. When the people of Han Mountain City learned of this news, they came to the originally hidden grounds filled with curiosity towards this mysterious place. Some of them did manage to find some herbs and serendipitous encounters, but most of them returned empty-handed. However, to these outsiders, being able to come to this mysterious place of the past and see with their own eyes the place that made the 3 tribes stay in Han Mountain for hundreds of years was enough to satisfy some of the mysteries of this place. During this month, an unprecedented number of people came to this once mysterious place. A large number of berserkers from Han Mountain City came to this place, causing the place to gradually lose its sense of mystery. As Lake of Colors tribe dismissed their guests, Puqiang tribe also dismissed their guests because they no longer had any desire. They no longer needed their guests' help. It was the same for Tranquil East tribe. The departure of the guests caused the 3 tribes to resume their seclusion, and it also changed the structure of Han Mountain City. However, these changes became insignificant when Freezing Sky clan's disciple recruitment, which happened once every few years, arrived. The entire Han Mountain City became lively once again. In the midst of the commotion, all the outsiders who came to the city talked about the recruitment of disciples for Freezing Sky clan. Almost all the berserkers in the land of South Morning longed to join Freezing Sky clan or Western Sea clan, and the people who came to Han Mountain City chose to join Freezing Sky clan. Freezing Sky clan was incredibly strict when it came to recruiting disciples. They had their own unique system. For example, if they were not part of the 3 tribes in Han Mountain City, they would have to challenge the chains of Han Mountain to prove their worth. However, this was just to prove their worth. It was not certain whether they would be accepted. At the same time, during this month, there was a name that started circulating in a small circle in Han Mountain City until it became a topic of discussion. This name was uttered by Nan Tian, acknowledged by Xianlun in silence, searched for by Han Fei Zi from Lake of Colors tribe, and gradually, almost everyone in Han Mountain City knew of this name. This name was Mo Su. In the midst of the discussions, the people in Han Mountain City gradually became familiar with this name, and from that familiarity, they could sense the strength and mysteriousness of this person. He was a new guest from Tranquil East tribe. His power was unfathomable. Yin Guang from Lake of Colors tribe had died in his hands, but Lake of Colors tribe did not pursue the matter. Tranquil East tribe sent away all their guests, but they kept one person's name. That person was the mysterious Mo Su. It was rumored that this person had already reached the Transcendence realm. 1 month ago, he stood on equal footing with Nan Tian in the hidden grounds of Han Mountain. Not only did he intimidate Xianlun, he also fought against Han Fei Zi. There was no result from that battle, but ever since Han Fei Zi returned to Lake of Colors tribe and started searching for this person frequently, people could tell that something was amiss. The appearance of any transcended berserker would cause a commotion in Han Mountain City. Besides the 3 tribes, there were originally only 5 transcended berserkers in Han Mountain City. Besides Xianlun and Nan Tian, there was also Ku Jiuxi from Lake of Colors tribe. As for the other 2, they did not join any tribe. Their goal in coming to Han Mountain City was clear. They wanted to join Freezing Sky Clan. These 5 people were like the sun at noon in Han Mountain City. Any one of them who joined a tribe could become the chief guest. Now that the 6th transcended berserker had appeared, the discussions about Mo Su's name in Han Mountain City increased. The reason for this was largely due to the fact that this person had yet to show up. It was as if the mystery surrounding Mo Su had also increased due to his absence. The people only knew that Mo Su wore a black robe, and the most obvious sign of it was the black mask he wore. No one knew what his face looked like under the mask. In fact, Nan Tian had once said something by chance during this month. I can't compare to Mo Su, and neither can Xianlun. All the transcended berserkers in Han Mountain City can't compare to him. Forget about the meaning behind his words. Once he said them, due to Xianlun's silent acknowledgement and Ku Jiuxi's nod, it caused a commotion in Han Mountain City. The mysterious 6th transcended berserker in Han Mountain City was the source of the most discussion in Han Mountain City, besides Freezing Sky Clan's recruitment of disciples. Perhaps it was because of this discussion that was obviously incited by someone else, but almost all the people in Han Mountain City were paying attention to everyone around them. They were instinctively searching for this mysterious Mo Su. I've already pushed this person to the top of the wave, as per your request, even if I don't know what your intentions are. Han Fei Zi sat quietly in the chamber on the mountain belonging to Lake of Colors tribe. There was a gentle-looking middle-aged man sitting before her. The man was dressed in green robes. He looked at Han Fei Zi and spoke with a light smile. Thank you, Senior Jiuxi, Han Fei Zi said calmly. It's fine. I'm curious. Is this person really so capable? You're not the only one looking for him. Even Tranquil East tribe is cooperating and stirring up a storm to search for him. Fortunately, Puqian tribe has already shut themselves up after sending away their guests. They have no contact with the outside world, or else if they joined in as well, I'd be even more surprised by this Mo Su. The middle-aged man smiled faintly. Han Fei Zi remained silent. She did not speak. After a long while, the middle-aged man let out a chuckle and left. A long while after he left, a strange glint appeared in Han Fei Zi's eyes, and she mumbled, Mo Su, I don't believe that you're dead. You still owe me a promise. Tranquil East tribe was also searching for Su Ming. Under the insistence of the tribe leader of Tranquil East tribe and his sister, Han Tsangzi, the entire Tranquil East tribe was mobilized to search for him on a large scale. that included the place where Su Ming had disappeared, which was once the hidden grounds of Han Mountain. Yet, even after a month had passed, no one had found Su Ming. Mo Su's name gradually became more and more mysterious in Han Mountain City. At that moment, people could often be seen moving about in the valleys and the canyons beneath Han Mountain City. There was a valley on the land, and during the past month, quite a number of people had passed by it to explore it. However, no one knew that there was a strange mountain cave in the valley. No one could discover the mountain cave. At that moment, mumbling sounds echoed in the mountain cave. "Who am I?" Su Ming sat cross-legged in the cave with his eyes wide open. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was confusion and emptiness in them. He forgot about the flow of time, forgot where he was, and kept thinking about this unanswered question. The mountain cave was not dark. During the past month, the cave was gradually filled with a red light. That red light came from Su Ming's body. There were a large number of blood veins flashing and increasing densely on his body. As the berserker bone in his body melted and the vast amount of qi absorbed and circulated in his body, Su Ming's blood veins had already reached 926. His blood veins were still increasing, but Su Ming did not notice it. His entire mind was immersed in a deep thought. This was the first time in his memories that he was thinking about destiny and thinking about who he was in this strange state. During the past month, he had been muddle-headed, as if he had lost himself. As he was deep in thought, his presence changed. The change was very faint and difficult to find, but it was real. It was just like the epiphany and metamorphosis he had experienced when he walked down the red path. It was rare for people to think about who they were. They would usually say things like, "I am who I am." Yet these words were said without any thought. It was a false affirmation that even the person himself did not know about. "If I am who I am, then who am I?" Su Ming mumbled. He could not understand. He wanted to know the answer. The answer was vague, and perhaps no one would tell him what it was. At that moment, Su Ming felt as if he was the only one who had struggled to open his eyes when everyone else had their eyes closed. It was as if he was struggling to climb out of a deep pit, and when he was about to fall back down at any moment, he lifted his head and looked at the world beyond the pit with all his might. He did not know what he saw. He only struggled to see it clearly. In his muddled state, he remembered a sentence left behind by someone in the bee-skin book the Elder had given him. It was also the sentence he did not understand the most. "The world I see, you cannot see it." Here's the second update. I wish all of you a happy holiday. This day belongs to the working people. You can count your ears as well. You're still working. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 168. Su Ming could not tell what he saw. Perhaps he did not see anything at all. However, he still struggled to see clearly, and even he did not know what he wanted to see. The world before his eyes was dark, and there was no light. "Do I desire to see light?" Su Ming mumbled these words that no one cared about. There was no answer to it, and he felt that he did not need an answer, because he suddenly understood. What he needed was not light, nor was it darkness. "I want to see an understanding. I want to see clearly." Su Ming closed his eyes. He did not close his eyes, but his thoughts, his heart, and his soul. It was as if the crack that had just opened up could not withstand the pressure and chose to close itself. It was as if he had struggled to climb to the edge of a pit from an abyss and lifted his head to take a look at the world outside before he fell back down. Yet even so, he still managed to see something. "If one day, when I find out who I am, then I will be me. Now I am Su Ming. I am Mo Su." Su Ming opened his eyes. There was still a hint of bewilderment in them, but that bewilderment had already been buried deep within his heart, and it remained in his thoughts. He suddenly felt a strong sense of loneliness. That loneliness came from within his heart, as if he had been abandoned by the entire world and the world. He was like a person who had lost his soul and could not find it. He was like a lost child who could not find his way back. He was like a wanderer who had left his home and had forgotten the taste of home in this vast world. "Why do you weep, O heavens?" These words that Su Ming had once said in a muddled manner and had even thought about before appeared in his heart, and he gradually began to understand them. He was silent. There was loneliness in the calmness in his eyes as he sat quietly in the quiet mountain cave. However, the calmness and silence this time might seem the same as before, but in truth, it was completely different. In his memories, he went through everything in Dark Mountain and woke up in the unfamiliar land of South Morning. Along the way, he learned to be silent, learned to be calm, and learned to be alone. However, this was something he had learned, something he used to hide, something he used to cover up his heart. It was a kind of childish disguise. Yet now, Su Ming lifted his right hand and touched the scar on his face. There was no longer any need for him to hide his silence and calmness. Instead, it had arisen from his heart, and it had turned into something contained within him. Have I grown up? Su Ming lowered his head and whispered to himself. The bright smile in his memories, the innocent words, and the scene of him being held by the elder like a child were all there in Su Ming's heart. Su Ming's childhood sweetheart in the snow, her light voice asking him to have his hair turn white, and her long black hair with a faint fragrance still remained in his heart. You've grown up. Su Ming lifted his head, and the instant he did so, booming sounds instantly rang out from his body and reverberated through the area. They turned into an endless amount of echoes that tumbled about in the mountain cave, as if they had turned into low growls that did not disappear even after a long time had passed. In the midst of the booming sounds, an endless amount of red light shone from Su Ming's body. That red light illuminated the dark mountain cave in a shade of red, causing everything in the place to sink into a world of red. Red? Bright red. It symbolized power. It symbolized power, and it made all those who looked at it feel a piercing pain in their eyes. With Su Ming's body as the center, the red light shone brilliantly in all directions. Under Su Ming's silence and calmness, the robes on his body turned into shreds and scattered into the wind. Only his storage bag and other items remained, and they fell by his feet. As his robes scattered, an innumerable amount of blood veins could be clearly seen on Su Ming's body. A normal person would not be able to tell just how many there were. Only Su Ming himself knew that the number of blood veins had already reached 939. If I don't die, then I will have a serendipity. Hong Kong, thank you. Su Ming was not surprised by the changes in his body. Hong Kong's words appeared in his heart. He could also clearly feel the berserker bone that had fused into his body. He could feel it slowly melting. The berserker bone should not have been absorbed by Su Ming so easily, but due to all the serendipity, the original owner of the berserker bone was refined into a clone by Hong Kong. He might not have had the time to train the clone's power, but he had changed it subconsciously over the years. As it melted, the power that spread out from the berserker bone was the main reason why his power increased exponentially. Su Ming sat down cross-legged and melted all the confusion in his heart. He did not want to show it on his face. He did not know where his path was, but he knew one thing. Only when he became powerful would he be able to answer his own questions. Only then would he have the chance and time to search for his own answer. I don't care whether it's destiny or whether my memories have been wiped away. One day, I will know the answer. Why know the answer? I will have the right to choose my own fate. Su Ming took a deep breath. The blood veins in his body let out a loud roar once again and increased once again. 941, 943, until it reached 952. 950 blood veins was a rare sight in the land of the Berserker tribe. This realm was known as the completion of the blood solidification realm. If a person could reach 980 blood veins, they would be known as the great completion of the blood solidification realm. It was incredibly rare for someone to reach this stage in the blood solidification realm. Even if there was someone who used the same method as Su Ming to absorb the berserker bones of those in the bone sacrifice realm, they would not be able to do so without Hong Kong's influence for 1,000 years. In fact, it was not as simple as it seemed. There was an important connection between them and the berserker blood within their bodies. The moment the 952 blood veins in Su Ming's body appeared, There were nearly 100 people in the hidden grounds of Han Mountain outside the mountain cave. These people were either in groups of 3 to 5 or alone. They were spread out and wandered around the hidden grounds in search of something. The place was originally quiet, but at that moment, the ground did not move. However, all the berserkers in the place suddenly felt as if their blood veins had gone out of control and became chaotic. This sudden change caused them to be alarmed. What's happening? A middle-aged man who had just walked out a valley that was originally used to plant herbs had a drastic change in expression. All the blood veins on his body manifested on their own, causing his entire body to be enveloped in a red light. The middle-aged man was momentarily stunned before shock appeared on his face. At the same time, all the people in the hidden grounds were in the same situation. They were surrounded by the light from the blood veins on their bodies. The blood light was not stable, as if there was a huge suction force pulling them in, as if they were about to be separated from their bodies. What's going on? What's happening here? I can't control my blood veins anymore. Damn it. This feeling only appears when someone in the transcendence realm. Could it be that a powerful transcended berserker is here? That's not right. Even a powerful transcended berserker would find it difficult to do this. There are more than 100 people here right now. Look at the red light around us. It's clear that everyone can't control their blood veins. Uproars reverberated in the hidden grounds, stirring up fear and panic. If this had been any other place, perhaps this sort of panic would not have appeared. After all, the berserkers who came here were not weaklings. Yet 2 months ago, this place was the most mysterious place in Han Mountain City. It might have been open to the public now, and 2 months had passed since then, but the mystery of this place still remained. There was no way they would not be shocked by such a shocking change happening in this sort of place. There must be a secret in this place that the 3 tribes have yet to discover. I might have just activated it, and it's already making my blood veins break down and fly out of my body. I can't stay here any longer. An old man with a head full of white hair moved. His face was pale. There was a grave look on his face. He was just about to leave the place and return to Han Mountain. He felt that this place was incredibly dangerous, and it was not something he could spy on. However, the moment he started running, before he could even travel 1,000 feet, a booming sound that shook the earth suddenly rose up from the numerous valleys in the hidden grounds. As the tremors appeared, it was as if the earth was shaking and the mountains were swaying. It caused the weather to change, and quite a number of the people in the hidden grounds to let out shocked cries of surprise. The old man did not even turn his head back. His heart pounded against his chest, and he became even more determined to leave this place as soon as possible. There were quite a few people who had the same idea as him. There were several dozens of people in the place, and they were all running from different directions to leave the place. However, after the tremors, a powerful pressure suddenly swept through the place like a violent gust of wind, instantly covering the entire hidden grounds. This pressure came too suddenly, catching everyone off guard. Booming sounds reverberated in the air, and the pressure shook the sky. The people who wanted to leave shuddered violently, and they could not help but stop moving under the pressure. They immediately sat down cross-legged and circulated the blood veins in their bodies to fight against the pressure. The galaxy that was originally in the sky had already disappeared when the seal was broken. What appeared before their eyes was a blue sky in the distance. This sky belonged to the berserkers and the land of South Morning. At that moment, the clouds in the sky were tumbling about. As they gathered together, there was a golden light surrounding them. This change immediately caught the attention of all the people in Han Mountain City. It also made the people from the 3 tribes look towards the sky. This is what happened. Why did the sky suddenly change? Could it be the people from Freezing Sky Clan? That's not right. Based on the time, Freezing Sky Clan should arrive a few months later. What a powerful pressure. I can't control my blood veins. What exactly is this phenomenon? What's this? Clouds are condensing and golden light is coiling around it. Could it be that some sort of treasure has appeared? Almost all the people in Han Mountain City put down what they were doing and lifted their heads to look at the sky. There was a buzz of discussion and surprise on their faces. There was also a hint of terror towards the unknown. This is... There was a trembling old man in Han Mountain City. He stood in the crowd with a cane in his hand and looked at the sky with a dumbfounded expression. There was no confusion in his eyes, but disbelief and shock. This is the god of Berserker's blessing that will only appear when those who have attained great completion of the blood solidification realm transcend. The old man was speechless. His words were heard by the people around him, and after a brief moment of silence, cries of alarm erupted. There's still one more chapter. Does everyone still have a monthly ticket? To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 169. There were not many people who could recognize the strange phenomenon in the sky, but it was not as if there were none. There were a few people in Han Mountain City who could recognize it. Their words caused the entire Han Mountain City to be shocked, and discussions rose into the sky. In the second layer of Han Mountain City was an elegant house. Nantion sat on a stone chair. Beside him was a middle-aged man. The man had a gentle expression on his face, as if joy and anger were rarely seen on his face. He was holding a cup of wine and drinking with Nantion. It was also at that moment that the phenomenon in the sky appeared. Faint sounds of uproar traveled into the city. Nantion lifted his head, but the moment he saw it, he shuddered. The gentle middle-aged man by his side also looked over. His gaze was calm, and his expression did not change, but the hand holding the cup trembled, and some wine spilled out. Transcendence after attaining great completion in the blood solidification realm. He doesn't look like a berserker who attained great completion. I once saw a prodigy who transcended with 982 blood veins. Compared to this, his momentum was even greater. The middle-aged man was the former chief guest of Lake of Colors tribe, Kujiosi. That's still a berserker who attained great completion in the blood solidification realm. Once this sort of person transcends, even if he's just reached the transcendence realm, he'll be able to surpass most of those in the initial stage of the transcendence realm and become one of the best. Since when did such a person appear in Han Mountain City? Nantion took a deep breath. He might seem calm, but his heart was filled with mixed feelings and shock because of the phenomenon in the sky. This person's presence is coming from the hidden grounds under Han Mountain. Should we go and take a look? A glint appeared in Kujiosi's eyes. No need. This person transcended with such momentum. He must have made sufficient preparations. If we go and he misunderstands, then we'll lose more than we gain. It's better if we wait until he succeeds before we go and greet him. It's impossible for a transcendence realm like this to fail. Nantion said slowly. Say, do you think this person is the mysterious M.O. who's been gaining fame lately? Kujiosi suddenly asked. Nantion narrowed his eyes and looked at the phenomenon in the sky. After a moment of hesitation, he shook his head and said, that Amosu doesn't seem like he hasn't transcended yet. He looks like he was originally in the transcendence realm, but because he was injured, his power fell. I don't think it's him. Kujusi said nothing, and Nantion hesitated for a moment as he looked up at the strange signs up above. As the two of them fell silent, Xianluan stood in a corner of the third layer of Han Mountain City with a dark expression on his face. He stared at the strange phenomenon in the sky, and his expression kept changing. Who is this person? He must have chosen this moment to transcend so that he can prepare to enter Freezing Sky Clan. Completion of the blood solidification realm. Completion of the blood solidification realm. If you don't provoke me, then I won't care, but if you block my path, then I'd like to see whether those who have attained completion of the blood solidification realm transcend are as strong as the rumors say. When a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky, besides the people in Han Mountain City being shaken and discussing among themselves, the three tribes in the area were also paying great attention to the change in the sky. Yin Luan stood at the top of the mountain where a Lake of Colors tribe was located with a solemn expression. She stared at the sky as her black hair swayed in the wind. Dressed in red, she looked incredibly beautiful. It would have been fine if you transcended in a normal berserker in Han Mountain City, but you're a rare berserker who attained completion in the blood solidification realm. Do you know that people like you can't transcend in other people's houses? Who are you? Yin Luan hesitated for a moment and lowered her head to look at the foot of Han Mountain City. She could sense that the person who was transcending was there. However, she did not go there recklessly. It was the same as Nan Tian's judgment. Those who attained completion in the blood solidification realm were definitely not normal people. It was impossible for such a powerful berserker to transcend without making preparations. Unless there was a deep grudge between them, very few people would do something like this, much less Yin Luan, who was the tribe leader of Lake of Colors tribe. She had to think about things more deeply. Besides the tribe members of Lake of Colors tribe watching the strange phenomenon in the sky, Han Feizi was also looking at the sky calmly on the mountain belonging to Lake of Colors tribe. There was uncertainty in her eyes, but there was no envy or shock. If I wanted to transcend, I could do this as well, but who is this person? Is it him? Han Feizi frowned and fell silent. There were a few people standing on the mountain belonging to Puqiang tribe. They too had their heads lifted and were looking at the sky, but no one was talking. No one knew what they were thinking in the silence. The elder of Tranquil East tribe sat cross-legged on the mountain. Behind him stood the tribe leader, Fong Shun, the chief of guards, the chief of battle, and the others. All of them were looking at the sky with varying expressions on their faces. There was shock, envy, and uncertainty. Interesting, the elder of Tranquil East tribe smiled faintly. Besides Han Feizi from Lake of Colors tribe, this is the second berserker who attained completion in the blood solidification realm. It's a pity he's not a member of Tranquil East tribe. At that moment, Su Ming did not know that the aura of transcendence brought about by the increase in his blood veins had caused a change in the sky, causing all the people in the hidden grounds to have to sit down and meditate to resist the qi and pressure descending upon them. The change in the place had even attracted the attention of those outside. As of then, Su Ming was sitting cross-legged on the mountain, and the blood veins in his body continued increasing. From 952 blood veins, he now had 963 blood veins. It was still increasing. 963 blood veins had already surpassed the number of Han Feizi's blood veins. They turned into a shocking blood-red light on Su Ming's body. It was as if the mountain cave was dyed red, and at the same time, the place turned into a sea of blood. As the number of blood veins increased, a faint feeling of transcendence rose within Su Ming's heart. That feeling gradually grew clearer, gradually giving him an urge that he could not suppress. He wanted to lift his hand and draw his own berserker mark. At the same time, as the blood veins in Su Ming's body increased, the people in the hidden grounds outside the mountain cave who could not leave started trembling. Their faces were pale, and their faces were filled with terror. They were almost at their limits. Once they could no longer withstand it, what awaited them would be their bodies exploding and their blood veins being sucked out. This is a berserker who has attained completion in the blood solidification realm, transcending. Some of the people had already guessed the answer, but once they did so, they lost the courage to fight back. Despair rose in their hearts. A normal transcended berserker would not cause such a phenomenon in the world. They would just quietly choose a safe place to transcend. Only those who had attained completion in the blood solidification realm would cause the world to change when they transcended. At the same time, if they were too close to them, then all those whose blood veins were weaker than theirs would shatter the moment they successfully transcended, just like a broken sword. At that moment, all the people were paying attention to the place. They would not save the people who were dragged into the world. Su Ming's breathing quickened. He lifted his right hand slowly, and the feeling of transcendence in his heart became stronger and clearer. He was almost certain that if he wanted to, he could transcend right then. But I still haven't found the materials suitable for my origin transcendence vessel. If I transcend now, I can only use the item he phone left behind. Besides, I have a feeling that if I suppress the urge to transcend now, then my blood veins will increase. Su Ming's right hand trembled. He needed a great amount of willpower to suppress the urge to transcend. His eyes shone brightly, and within that light was determination and ambition. 963 blood veins is just the completion of the blood solidification realm. I don't want to transcend with completion. If I really want to transcend, then I'll try and reach great completion of the blood solidification realm with more than 980 blood veins. It's fine if I don't transcend, but once I transcend, then I will have no regrets. I only lack Sky Flute Branch for Spirit Plunder. Tranquil's tribe is searching for it. The isolation grounds of Han Mountain's ancestor might be in chaos right now, but it shouldn't be too difficult for them to get it. If I transcend and choose my origin vessel, then I wonder if Spirit Plunder will work. I can't be hasty about this. I can't be hasty. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. Veins popped up on his face as he suppressed the urge to transcend and lowered his lifted right hand. The instant he lowered his right hand, his body suddenly trembled violently. Rumbling sounds surged out. Under this pressure, it was as if the magma that was about to erupt had been forcefully suppressed. Even so, the explosive force that had accumulated within it had naturally become stronger. Booming sounds reverberated in the air, and Su Ming immediately felt as if his body was being torn apart. He went against the urge to transcend and forcefully reversed the process of transcending to obtain more blood veins. But this method was clearly not allowed. As the booming sounds reverberated in his body, blood flowed out of Su Ming's eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, but his eyes were bright. Why transcend will be determined by my will. It won't be decided by this vast world, and it won't be decided by some unknown existence. Su Ming mumbled. The moment his words left his mouth, the number of blood veins in his body increased with a bang. From 963, the number of blood veins in his body increased by 10, reaching 973. It was still going on. 974, 975, 976. As the number of blood veins increased, the feeling of his body being torn apart became stronger. Yet Su Ming could feel that with each additional blood vein, he would become stronger after he transcended. When a number of blood veins in his body reached 979, and he only needed one more to attain great completion in the blood solidification realm, the urge to transcend crashed into Su Ming's mind like a tidal wave, causing him to lift his right hand once again. At that moment, the sky and the world outside became even bigger. The clouds rumbled, and the golden light was piercing. It was as if a deity statue was about to be formed. In the hidden grounds and the canyons, most of the people who were sitting cross-legged and fighting back had blood trickling out of their mouths. Despair appeared on their faces. In the mountain cave, Su Ming looked at his lifted right hand. His expression was cold as he spoke slowly. So, this is transcendence? It's like a summoning. But today I won't transcend. This is my will. Su Ming lifted his head. His gaze seemed to pierce through the mountain cave, and he looked at the indistinct deity statue slowly gathering in the sky. Find control. Su Ming closed his eyes. The number of blood veins in his body suddenly stopped at 979, and with fine control, he hid away the rage in his body. I will decide my fate. I rarely covet things. It's not that I'm not greedy, but if I do, I'll definitely be greedy this time. Su Ming wiped off the blood at the corner of his mouth and laughed coldly. Chapter 4. I'm so tired. Once I finish writing these chapters, I'll know once again that I'm not young anymore. I've seen many authors say that they'll use their chapters to exchange for monthly votes. This time, I'll use the time I give to everyone to exchange for monthly votes. Let's see how many monthly votes I can get. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Achidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 170. 979, 943, 912, 887. Under the fine control of his will, the blood veins in Su Ming's body were immediately hidden away at a shocking speed. As they were hidden away, the urge to transcend in his body was also forcefully suppressed. If I can't even control when I transcend, then how can I decide my own fate? Su Ming's eyes sparkled. With fine control, a large number of blood veins in his body were once again hidden away. At that moment, as Su Ming's blood veins were hidden away and the urge to transcend was forcefully suppressed by his will, the near 100 people who were resisting in despair in the hidden grounds of Han Mountain outside the mountain cave had already lost all hope. Almost all of them had blood trickling down the corners of their mouths. They could even feel death approaching them. They could see their bodies exploding and the devastating sight of their blood veins flying out. Their will to live made them continue resisting, even if they knew it was futile. They wanted to search for a chance of survival that might not exist. Yet at that moment, the moment Su Ming scattered his blood veins and suppressed the urge to transcend, the near 100 berserkers immediately noticed that the rampaging blood veins in their bodies had calmed down. The faint pressure that came from the depths of their bodies was also rapidly disappearing. This sudden discovery made these people who originally thought they were definitely going to die ecstatically. Most of them were momentarily stunned before they immediately got up and ran back without any hesitation. With their hearts pounding against their chests and their nerves still filled with fear, they ran for their lives like madmen. However, there were still some people who understood the situation. These people might also be running away quickly, but before they lifted their feet or took a few steps forward, they would hesitate for a moment before bowing deeply towards the valley that terrified them. "Thank you for showing mercy, Senior. Thank you for not killing us." These people were not mumbling, but were filled with chi that echoed in the area. As these voices increased, the people who were still running for their lives could not help but stop for a moment before they wrapped their fists in their palms and bowed deeply towards the ground, saying similar words. For a period of time, their voices rose and fell, turning into echoes that spread out in the hidden grounds of Han Mountain. Fear lingered in their hearts as they narrowly escaped death. This was the same thought that appeared in the hearts of all the people who escaped from the hidden grounds of Han Mountain. Once they expressed their gratitude, they left at full speed. In the sky, the clouds were rolling and gathering. The golden light penetrated through the clouds and filled half the sky. One could even clearly see a statue of a deity that was rapidly taking shape. Yet at that moment, the moment Su Ming suppressed the urge to transcend, a shocking roar came from the clouds in the sky, as if there was someone roaring in anger. The golden light shone brightly. At the same time it dimmed. The deity statue that was rapidly taking shape seemed to have gained sentience. It looked as if it was lowering its head to look at the spot where Su Ming was located at the bottom of the canyons of Han Mountain. "I was created by the first god of berserkers, the deity statue of transcendence of the berserker tribe. There was a great might in its voice that spread through the sky and earth like thunder. As its voice traveled outwards, the ground trembled. The mountain where Han Mountain City was located also started trembling. A large amount of shattered stones fell and dust rose into the air, but the moment it appeared, it was forced down by the pressure. Han Mountain City was not the only one affected. The mountains where Lake of Colors, Tranquil East, and Pucheon tribes were located also started trembling. The might of the voice caused the countless onlookers to be shocked and shocked. No one knew who was the first to kneel down, but after a moment, almost everyone knelt down on the ground and worshipped the indistinct deity statue in the sky. Within Han Mountain City, there was a black mass of people kneeling on the ground. Their faces were filled with fanaticism and respect as they looked at the person in the sky. His awe-inspiring voice echoed in their ears. The sight of a deity manifesting in the sky was something most of them had never seen in their lives. I once heard that there are 3 great deity statues in the Berserker tribe. They were all created by the first god of berserkers and represent the 3 great realms of the Berserker tribe. transcendence, bone sacrifice, and berserker soul. I originally thought that this was just a legend. I didn't expect. It's real. The deity's statue of transcendence. This is one of the three great deity statues of the berserker tribe. The deity's statue of transcendence. Nantion and Kujiosi could not remain calm. They knelt down on one knee and looked at the indistinct deity statue in the sky, their hearts trembling. This is the second time I've seen this deity statue. This time, it's a little more indistinct than the last time, but this is the first time I've heard the deity statue speak. I might know that the legend about the three great deity statues is real, but this is the first time I've seen it with my own eyes. It said that only those who have attained completion in the blood solidification realm transcend can cause the deity statue of the great Ute dynasty to descend. This is the blessing of the god of berserkers. Within Han Mountain City, Xianluan was also kneeling down on one knee in a corner. He looked at the deity statue in the sky with a dumbfounded expression as its words echoed in his ears. He clenched his fists. 913 blood veins were my limit in the past. When I transcended, there was no wind and clouds. Compared to this person, Xianluan clenched his fists even tighter. Jealousy rose in his heart. That jealousy was not because of the person, but because of the matter. Lake of Colors, Tranquil East, and Puqiang tribes were also kneeling down and worshipping. They looked at the deity statue in the sky with reverence. That deity statue was everything to the berserker tribe. It said that during the era of the first god of berserkers, everyone was a berserker. There were no realms, no methods of training. The first berserker used a great amount of power and used an endless amount of time to explore his own body and created three deity statues. From then on, he created the realms suitable for the berserker tribe's training: transcendence, bone sacrifice, and berserker soul. This isn't the first time I've seen the deity statue of transcendence, but this is the first time I've heard its words. On Lake of Colors Mountain, Yanluan's face was filled with respect. Not a single hint of her usual charm could be seen on her face. At that moment, she was as pure and holy as a wooden slip without a single word carved on it. The mighty voice of the indistinct deity statue in the sky reverberated in the air. As it traveled into everyone's ears, it also traveled into Su Ming's heart. That voice was originally meant for him. If anyone else heard it, they would be able to feel its might. Su Ming was at the center of the vortex. That voice was like a million claps of thunder rumbling in his heart, as if it was about to shatter his body. As that rumbling sound shook the sky and earth, Su Ming shuddered. Blood trickled down the corners of his mouth. He continued entering fine control and lifted his head to look above him. He could not see what was outside, but he could feel a gaze looking at him from the sky where the voice came from. That gaze was filled with might, but there was no life within it. It was just a dead object. The will of my existence is to carry on the hopes of the first god of berserkers and transcend for the berserker tribe. All those whose blood is as thick as that of the previous berserkers can receive the blessing of the god of berserkers. I exist and I watch. The voice was mighty, causing the ground to tremble once again. Why, thou shalt not transcend. A bright light appeared in the eyes of the indistinct deity statue in the sky. That light shone with an endless amount of golden light that enveloped the land in an instant. As it covered the land, it looked as if the land had been dyed in gold. The last sentence also caused everyone's bodies to tremble. It also turned into echoes in Su Ming's heart, as if there were an endless amount of people roaring and questioning him at the same time. Su Ming trembled. The blood veins that he had hidden away when he entered fine control were starting to show signs of reappearing. The urge to transcend that he had been suppressing appeared once again. It was as if there was a powerful will spreading out from the deity statue, forcing Su Ming to transcend on that day. A part of my memories was once wiped away. This isn't up to me to decide. I came from Dark Mountain and was sucked into the void. This isn't up to me to decide. I came to the land of South Morning and went through a lot. Almost everything was pushed through by the waves, and it wasn't up to me to decide. I searched for who I am and wanted to open my eyes to see the world that others might not be able to see, but in the end, I still closed my eyes. This isn't up to me to decide. Su Ming Mo Su. In my life, it's as if everything in my life was set by someone else. I wasn't allowed to, wasn't up to me to change, wasn't in control. I, Su Ming, can't even control my own path and my own fate. Today, I will control myself once. I want to control my own path. I don't want to transcend right now. No one can change that. I know when I transcend. Su Ming asked calmly. He might be trembling under the awe-inspiring pressure in his heart, but the determination in his voice represented his heart. You said that you were created by the first god of berserkers and that you were the deity statue for the berserkers to transcend. Then how did the first god of berserkers who created you transcend? Who would force him to transcend? I transcend, don't need you. The moment Su Ming sent that thought out, he used fine control to control his blood veins once again, making them disappear once again. After a short period of silence, the indistinct deity statue in the sky cast a cold glance at the canyons of Han Mountain. Discovered person who went against the will of the first god of berserkers. First offender warning. His words were still the same as when he started speaking. There was not a hint of change in his voice. As his words spread out, the indistinct deity statue gradually disappeared, as if it had melted into the world. The golden light disappeared along with the rolling clouds and disappeared into the sky. The land was silent. This strange sight shocked all those who saw it. This shock was enough to make them choose to remain silent and look at the canyons under Han Mountain City with complicated gazes. This was the first time all the people who were watching saw someone refusing to transcend when they should have. Who is this person? Why did he do this? As expected, he attained completion in the blood solidification realm, but this person refused to transcend. It's really hard to understand. Going against the will of the first god of berserkers is something I've never heard of before. Almost at the same time the deity statue in the sky and the clouds disappeared, long arcs charged out from Han Mountain City, Lake of Colors Mountain, Tranquil East Mountain, and Puqiang Mountain towards the canyons. These people were the powerful berserkers from the 3 tribes in Han Mountain City. They wanted to know just who was the person who caused such a shocking change. I caught a cold and my father-in-law is in the hospital. I woke up late today. That's why the update was delayed until now. Please forgive me. In the future updates, the chapter in the afternoon might be delayed. Please forgive me. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian.com and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 171. Yanwan, the Elder of Tranquil East, the 5 powerful, transcended berserkers of Han Mountain City, and the other people from the 3 tribes were among these long arcs. Han Sang Zi and Han Fei Zi were also among them. However, this search was bound to come to nothing. Unless Su Ming left the mountain cave on his own, there was no way they would be able to find the other half of the 4.5 layers Hong Kong had created. Not even Freezing Sky Clan's left preceptor, Zhou, had managed to discover it. After searching for a few days, these people left in silence. They did not find any clues. In their minds, the mysterious berserker who had attained completion in the blood solidification realm had already left. During the month that followed, the identity of the mysterious person who had attained completion in the blood solidification realm gradually became the center of discussion in Han Mountain City. All sorts of guesses rose and fell, and some of them were so ridiculous that they found it hard to believe. Just like the mysterious Mo Su, he was remembered by the people in Han Mountain City. Gradually, he became the center of discussion. Due to his mysteriousness, his reputation surpassed that of the original 5 transcended berserkers of Han Mountain City. He was like the sun at noon. There were also people who wondered whether Mo Su and the mysterious berserker who had attained completion in the blood solidification realm were the same person, but it was just a thought. As for the leaders of the 3 tribes and the 5 powerful transcendent berserkers of Han Mountain City, they did not think so. Some of them had come into contact with Su Ming before, and when they compared them to them, they got rid of the thought that would easily make people connect the two. 2 months had passed since the deity statue of transcendence appeared in the sky. Since there were no other changes in the hidden grounds of Han Mountain, some of the more daring people gradually appeared in the place again to search for the serendipity that might appear in the herbs that no one else had discovered. However, there were not many people like this. Still, no matter what, there were people appearing once again in the canyons of Han Mountain that had been silent for 2 months. Chowda was a daring person. His hair may have turned white, but he was still very interested in searching for treasures. He had come to the hidden grounds of the plains of Han Mountain several times. Now, while there were not many people around, he came again. This time, he was not alone. He brought a teenager with him. The teenager was a little dazed, but he obeyed Xiao Da's words. The 2 of them charged through the valleys in this place, occasionally stopping to carefully search for secrets that might not have been discovered by others. "Uncle, there's nothing here. Uncle, there's nothing here either. Uncle, there's still nothing here." Every time the 2 of them searched a valley, the dazed young man would mutter this sentence: "Uncle, this place." At the entrance of a valley, the youth was just about to speak when Xiao Da, who had not found anything for several days, turned around and reprimanded him angrily. What do you know? Shut up. Uncle, this." The young man scratched his head, but he was interrupted again just as he was about to speak. "Don't say any more. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have brought you here. If there were treasures everywhere, would we even have the chance to come here? This is called exploration." "Exploration, do you understand?" "Child, remember this, what we are searching for is not treasure, but to experience the process," Chowda said sternly. The youth's eyes widened. His dazed expression made Chowda feel as if he was talking to himself. He could not help but rub the space between his brows. "Your attitude isn't right. L'Uncle tell you, treasure hunting is an interesting thing. Don't always think about the treasure. The process is very important. Do you think Uncle came here to look for treasure? I'm telling you, I'm doing this to enjoy the process." Chowda decided to remind this junior of his. "Do you understand now?" "Uncle, this place." The youth blinked, but the moment he opened his mouth, Chowda immediately smiled bitterly. He knew what the youth was going to say next. He shook his head and ignored him, then walked forward. "Uncle, I understand now. What we want is the process." When he saw that Xiao Da was ignoring him, the youth seemed to have understood something. He quickly ran to follow behind Xiao Da while counting on his fingers and muttering in a low voice. "Even if I clearly saw a treasure just now, Uncle, you won't bother to find it." I understand now. What we want is the process." The youth was still muttering. "Yes, that's right. Even if you saw a treasure, I would." What did you say just now? Treasure? You saw a treasure?" Chowda stroked his beard and nodded. As he walked, he suddenly stopped and turned his head around. His eyes widened. With a stunned expression, the youth pointed at the valley they had just left. "It's there. I was about to tell you just now. There's a place over there that shines." The moment he finished speaking, Xiao Da had already charged into the valley at an extremely fast speed with a whoosh. The youth scratched his head, feeling rather puzzled. His uncle was clearly disdainful of treasures, so why was he not enjoying the process now? He felt that this question was very profound and he could not understand it, but he still quickly ran over. The moment he entered the valley, he saw Xiao Da searching around. "Where is it? Where's the place that shines?" "It's this place. I saw it shining just now." The youth took a few quick steps forward and pointed at a spot on the wall of the valley, but when he pointed, the youth's finger actually penetrated through the wall. This scene immediately made Xiao Da's expression reveal wild joy and excitement. He quickly looked around, and once he was sure that there was no one around, he charged towards the youth. After observing the wall for a moment, he raised his hand and placed it on the wall, penetrating it as well. Chowda, have finally found a secret place." Chowda grabbed the dazed youth excitedly and charged towards the wall, directly passing through it. Cloud leaf grass. There's so much cloud leaf grass. Right now, one cloud leaf grass can be sold for 100 stone coins. I'm rich. I'm rich. The moment Xiaoda entered, his eyes shone, and he stared straight at the place where medicinal herbs were grown not too far away from him. He rubbed his hands and was beyond excited. Uncle, this place. The youth's dazed voice rang out. I know. There are medicinal herbs here, and these medicinal herbs are treasures. Xiaoda took a few quick steps forward and arrived at the place where the medicinal herbs were grown. He squatted down and quickly picked them up one by one, his face filled with joy. Uncle, this place. The youth's voice trembled slightly. I know. You're going to ask me why I don't enjoy the process, right? Let me tell you, the process is important, but the treasures are even more important. You must remember this. Xiaoda was no longer impatient in his joy. As he explained, he quickly picked up a large amount of medicinal herbs. Uncle, this place. The youth's voice trembled even more, and there was even a hint of fear in it. It was a pity that Xiao Da's attention was completely drawn to the medicinal herbs at that moment, and he did not notice it at all. 8 stalks, 10 stalks, 13 stalks. I'm rich. I'm really rich this time. 14 stalks, 15 stalks. Aya, what are you trying to say? Didn't I teach you already? Xiao Da licked his lips and quickly harvested. He wants to say that there's someone here. A cold voice suddenly reverberated in the place. That voice appeared too suddenly, causing Xiao Da's hand, which was about to grab the 16th medicinal herb, to pause. He whipped his head around, and his expression was one of shock. He saw a person standing next to the youth. That person was dressed in black and had a delicate face. There was a scar under his eyes, and his gaze was cold as he stared at Xiao Da. Uncle, he's right. What I want to say is that there's someone here. The youth let out a deep breath, and nervousness appeared on his face. Xiao Da's heart pounded against his chest, and a murderous intent rose in his heart. The value of the medicinal herbs in this place was too great, and he would definitely have to fight for them. However, the youth was right beside the youth, and this made Xiao Da hesitate. Just as he was hesitating, he suddenly noticed that the youth looking at him had a cold gaze that seemed to have gained physical form. It made Xiao Da shudder, and he felt as if he was submerged in ice water at that moment. His entire body turned pale. Say, Senior, please spare me. Xiao Da trembled and knelt down on the ground, quickly begging for mercy. He may not know the level of cultivation of the person before him, but if that person could make him feel as if he had sunk into ice with just one gaze, it was clear that this was not something that a berserker in the blood solidification realm could do. It was especially so when he realized that his blood veins could not even appear before this person. This made him shocked and terrified. That young man was Su Ming. During the past 2 months, Su Ming had gradually suppressed his blood veins. Today, when he came out of isolation, he wanted to see how he could leave the hidden grounds of Han Mountain. However, the moment he walked out of the half-dimensional space, he appeared in the mountain cave. He was just about to leave when he noticed an old man and a young man barging in. The old man did not even see him. He charged towards a cloud leaf grass that Su Ming did not even want. Only the youth stood there and stared at him blankly. Su Ming stared at the old man, and a pensive look appeared in his eyes. Could it be that something changed in this place after Hong Kong died? This old man is only around the 7th level of the blood solidification realm, but he brought a child here. Xiao Da's heart raced against his chest. He was incredibly nervous. Under Su Ming's gaze, a large amount of sweat broke out on his forehead. Tell me about the major events that happened in Han Mountain City over the past few years. If I'm satisfied, then all the herbs in this place will belong to you, Su Ming said slowly. Xiao Da did not dare wipe off the sweat on his forehead. Neither did he dare guess why Su Ming would ask such a question. Once he heard Su Ming's words, he quickly spoke respectfully and told Su Ming almost everything he knew over the past few years. When he told him about how the place was no longer sealed off a few months ago and that people could come and go as they pleased, Su Ming's expression remained calm. There was not a hint of change in his expression. Mo Su's mysteriousness has always been a mystery. The berserker who attained completion in the blood solidification realm is even more mysterious. Xiao Da's voice trembled as he told Su Ming everything he knew about Mo Su and the berserker who attained completion in the blood solidification realm in Han Mountain City, as well as the strange phenomenon in the sky. Yet as he spoke, his body trembled even more. He looked at Su Ming, and a guess formed in his head. Su Ming stood there in silence for a while before his gaze fell on the boy by his side. "What's your name?" "My name is Xiao Hong." The boy still had a dumbfounded expression on his face. "I'll give you the herbs in this place." Once Su Ming finished speaking, he cast a glance at the boy before he turned around and disappeared with one step. Only then did Xiao dare wipe off the sweat on his forehead. With a face filled with lingering fear, he pointed at Xiao Hong and rebuked him. "You brat, why didn't you tell me that there was someone here? I already said it, but you never let me finish." There was a wronged look on the boy's face. You're making me so angry. Remember, I'm telling you, next time when you speak, you have to say everything in one go. No matter how others interrupt you, you have to say everything in one go. You can't stop." Xiao wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead once again. He looked at the herbs on the ground, and joy appeared on his face. "I'm rich. I'm really rich this time." "All right, I'll remember, Uncle. Don't worry. No matter how others interrupt me, I'll definitely say everything in one go. I won't stop. I'll say everything in one go." The boy mumbled and panted for a long time after he finished speaking. "I'm going to the hospital to take care of an old man after I publish this chapter. It's my father-in-law. He's unconscious due to cerebral infarction. I know it's double now, and I'm planning to use it, but I can't keep up with the changes. Please forgive me. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation." Chapter 172. Xiao Hong was quite an extraordinary boy. Su Ming walked out of the mountain cave hidden in the walls of the valley and turned his head back to look at the wall that was incredibly difficult to discover. Even he would find it difficult to see if he did not pay too much attention to it. If he did not cast the branding art and only looked at it with his naked eyes, then he would be able to see that the wall was glowing faintly. Su Ming averted his gaze and did not continue wearing the mask. He used the black robe to cover his head and slowly walked out of the valley. As he walked through the once hidden grounds of Han Mountain, he saw some people like Xiao Da who were searching for treasures in this place. These people would usually only cast a glance at Su Ming before they no longer paid him any attention. No one knew that Mo Su, who had disappeared for several months, had walked out of the canyons during dusk. No one knew that the mysterious berserker who had attained completion in the blood solidification realm and caused the deity statue of transcendence to appear 2 months ago was walking out of the canyons. Everything was as usual during dusk. Han Mountain City was brightly lit. As the day of Freezing Sky Clan's arrival drew nearer, the city became livelier. The mountains of the 3 tribes around Han Mountain City were immersed in silence. The 3 tribes had already locked down their own mountains and stopped all visitors. Even those who had reached the Transcendence realm had to stop before middle-sized tribes like the 3 tribes. The setting sun looked red, but that red was not as red as fire. It was just a remnant of the sun. The land was dyed red by dusk and was about to turn dark. Tranquil East Tribe welcomed the guest it had been waiting for a long time at the foot of the mountain when the sun could no longer be seen. Su Ming put on the mask once again and stood at the foot of the mountain of Tranquil East Tribe. There was wind blowing against his black robes. He stood there and looked at the mountain quietly. This was the second time he stood there. Compared to the first time, besides the time difference, he also felt as if he had been reborn. He was completely different. Last time, Su Ming had to show that he had transcended, but this time he did not need to. He just stood there, and no one could ignore him. Those in the blood solidification realm could not sense his presence too deeply. Only those in the transcendence realm could clearly feel the pressure that came from Su Ming's body that came from attaining completion in the blood solidification realm. Su Ming walked up the stairs calmly. The moment he stepped on the stairs, a great pressure came crashing down on him. This was the power that protected the mountain after Tranquil East Tribe sealed off the mountain. It prevented outsiders from entering. Su Ming had faced this power before, and now that he experienced it again, the effect it had on him was no longer as great as before. If he wanted to, he could completely ignore the existence of this pressure. Mo Su greets the Anong clan leader. Su Ming's calm voice traveled forth unhurriedly. He did not add in the power of his qi to make his voice echo in the air like before. Now, he only said it calmly. Naturally, these words echoed throughout Tranquil East. As Su Ming's words traveled forth, the quiet mountain of Tranquil East Tribe suddenly woke up from its slumber. The pressure formed by the power that protected the mountain disappeared in an instant. At the same time, several long arcs charged down from the top of the mountain. At that moment, a large number of Tranquil East Tribe members rushed down from the mountain as if they had received an order. They stood by the sides with respectful expressions, forming a winding path to welcome guests. There were 8 people in the long arcs. The one leading them was the tribe leader of Tranquil East, Fang Shun. The people following behind him were mostly his trusted subordinates. There was also one person who was Tranquil East Chief of War. These people rushed over and appeared before Su Ming. Mo family, I have been waiting for you for months. Please. Fang Shun first sized up Su Ming, then joy soon appeared on his face. He laughed and wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming. His expression might have seemed normal, but the moment he saw Su Ming, he was shocked. The feeling he got from the person before him was completely different from the Mo Su he met in the past. At that time, he could still see some clues about Su Ming, and it was these clues that made him test and hesitate. Yet now, Su Ming was like an abyss in his eyes. He could not see through him, In fact, if he took a closer look, he would find that the qi in his body was showing signs of instability. There was no way Fang Shun would not be shocked by this. It was especially so when he remembered the rumors about Mo Su. Some of them might have been purposely revealed by Tranquil East Tribe, but there were still a lot of them that Tranquil East Tribe valued. You killed Yin Guang, forced Han Fei Zi to retreat, Nin Tianjing suppressed Xianlun. The name of Mo family now shakes through Han Mountain. Mo family, please. Let's talk in detail on the mountain. Fang Shun's smile grew wider. Besides Fang Shun, the chief of war who came with him was also shocked. The short man had already transcended. The moment he saw Su Ming, his expression immediately changed, and his footsteps came to a barely noticeable halt, causing him to widen his eyes. He could not feel the existence of the blood veins in Su Ming's body, but that was only secondary. More importantly, he could feel an indescribable pressure coming from Su Ming's body. That pressure was something that he had not felt when he first saw Su Ming. The return of the Mo family is a great matter for Tranquil East Tribe. Please. The chief of war took a deep breath, and his attitude immediately changed from before. He wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming with a smile. There's no need for you to go up the mountain. Su Ming wrapped his fist in his palm towards Fang Shun and the chief of war to return the greeting and spoke calmly. Besides returning the status of a guest, I came here because I have 3 things to ask of you, Brother Fang. When Fang Shun heard Su Ming's words, a grave look appeared on his face. Brother Mo, you don't have to be in a hurry to resign as a guest. Just tell me what you want. Thank you. Su Ming nodded his head. He did not mention the dangers at the foot of Han Mountain. He was the one who requested to enter the place. It had nothing to do with anyone else. First, I didn't manage to find Sky Flute Branch during the change in Han Mountain, but I believe you must have found it after the incident. Give me that herb. Once I'm done with my preparations, I'll come and treat Fang Mu's injuries as soon as possible. Fang Shen nodded towards Su Ming without any hesitation. I've already found Sky Flute Branch. It was originally prepared for you, Brother Mo. I'll have to trouble you with my son. I'll immediately ask someone to send it over. Brother Mo, please tell me the other 2 things. As Fang Shen spoke, he turned around and cast a glance at his tribe member. That tribe member immediately obeyed respectfully and retreated quickly towards the top of the mountain. Second, I would like to see the topographic map of the land of South Morning, Su Ming said unhurriedly. Fang Shun fell silent. He did not answer immediately, but frowned. After a long while, he hesitated for a moment before he looked at Su Ming. Brother Mo, a topographic map is an important item to any tribe. Usually, a single topographic map is drawn bit by bit with the blood, sweat, and tears of several generations, or even more. I'll have to ask the elder about this. Su Ming did not speak. He simply looked at Fang Shun calmly. There was not a hint of emotion in his eyes as he looked at him quietly. There might not be a deep meaning behind his gaze, but if Fang Shun could become the tribe leader of Tranquil East Tribe, he would definitely not be as boorish as he appeared. From a moment Su Ming came into contact with Fang Mu until now, he had laid down his plan step by step. Besides liking Fang Mu, the main reason he did so was to get in touch with Tranquil East Tribe. His goal in getting in touch with Tranquil East Tribe was to become part of Han Mountain City, but at the end of the day, the root of all this was a topographic map. Su Ming did not use Fang Mu's healing as a hostage. Fang Shun understood this, and it was precisely because of this that he could not refuse certain things. When interacting with others, returning the favor was the most important thing. Su Ming healing Fang Mu, and Fang Shun searching for herbs for Su Ming. This might be a trade, but deep down, it was also a favor. Fang Shun knew that he now owed Su Ming a favor. At the same time, he also understood that if Mo Su dared to make this second request, it was clear that besides wanting Fang Shun to return the favor, Mo Su was also confident that he could completely heal Fang Mu. All right, I won't say any more. If the elder doesn't agree to the topographic map, I'll get it for you. Fang Shun suddenly said. Thank you. Su Ming wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed towards Fang Shun. When he lifted his head, he spoke unhurriedly. Third, I want to meet Han Songzi. I can agree to the first two requests, but I can't make the decision for the third. But I'll tell my sister and let her decide. Fang Shun said unhurriedly as he looked at Su Ming. All right. No one could see Su Ming's expression due to his mask. They could only see that his eyes were as calm as still water. Su Ming brought out the guest plate from Tranquil East and handed it to Fang Shun. Then, he nodded towards the chief of war by his side and walked down the stairs. He sat down cross-legged and waited quietly. Fang Shun hesitated for a moment before he asked, How long will it take to heal my son, and how should I find you? Within 3 months. As for how to find me, even if you can't find me, Han Songzi can, Su Ming said softly. Oh, a glint appeared in Fang Shun's eyes and a smile appeared on his face. He wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming. Brother Mo, since you're so confident, then I'll congratulate you in advance. As he spoke, he turned around and led his followers towards the mountain. The chief of war cast a glance at Su Ming and hesitated for a moment. Once everyone left, he remained silent for a moment before he turned around to leave. Chief of war, what is it? Please speak. Su Ming opened his eyes and looked at the chief of war. Brother Mo, do you know Sima Xian? Sima Xian? Who is he? Su Ming shook his head. The chief of war sighed softly, and a hint of disappointment appeared briefly in his eyes. This person looks very similar to you, Brother Mo. If you have the chance to meet him in the future, please tell him that Bei Shi from Tranquil East Tribe has transcended and greet him. Thank you. The chief of war bowed towards Su Ming before he turned around and left. His back looked rather desolate as he slowly disappeared from Su Ming's sight. Sima Xian looks similar to me? Su Ming frowned. He did not wait for long before someone came from a mountain of Tranquil East Tribe. The person who came was a middle-aged man. With a respectful expression, he placed 2 brocade boxes before Su Ming before he bowed and left. There was a hint of desire hidden deep within Su Ming's eyes. He lowered his head and looked at the 2 brocade boxes before him. He knew that one of them contained a map of the terrain. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 173. Su Ming closed his eyes and calmed himself down before opening the first brocade box. The moment he did so, a medicinal fragrance wafted into his nose. The fragrance was very faint, but when he smelled it, Su Ming felt as if he could hear a tune that was being played by an unknown instrument. That tune was filled with sounds that were beautiful and pleasant to the ears. It made people think that this sound could only be the sound of nature. After a long while, Su Ming looked at the brocade box. There were 3 herbs inside. These herbs looked very strange. They looked like tree branches, but there were some small holes on them. As for the beautiful music, it was not an illusion. It was formed when wind blew through the holes on the herbs. Sky flute branch. Su Ming lifted his right hand and slapped the box. Immediately, the 3 sky flute branches disappeared from his hand along with the brocade box. He put them away into his storage bag. His gaze fell on the second brocade box, and his breathing quickened. He might have known that the map inside might not be complete, but it was still a ray of hope. He placed his hand slowly on the brocade box, and just as he was about to open it, "If you open it, then you must cure Feng Mu." A delicate voice came from beside Su Ming, and along with it was a light and elegant fragrance. That fragrance might have come after the medicinal fragrance from Sky Flute Branch, but it gave off 2 different feelings. The medicinal fragrance was like old wine, and the fragrance was like a dream. Su Ming's expression remained the same. There was no change in his expression. He had noticed Han Songzi's arrival a long time ago. He did not stop because of her words. Su Ming opened the brocade box calmly and saw a folded beast skin inside. As he looked at the beast skin, a complicated look appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He suddenly did not dare to look at it. He was afraid that what he saw would be different from what he knew. He was afraid that Dark Mountain would no longer exist in this world. Han Songzi arrived before Su Ming with light steps and sat down cross-legged. She looked at the masked man before her quietly. She could see the complicated look in Su Ming's eyes that he did not bother to hide. The 2 of them did not speak. After a moment of silence, Su Ming picked up the beast skin from the brocade box and opened it before him. He looked at it intently. "Are you disappointed?" Han Songzi said softly. Her voice was very soft, and there was an indescribable feeling in the ears of those who heard it. Just like her, she was delicate and beautiful on the outside, but her heart was so strong that it surpassed many men. Su Ming looked at the map before him. The map was drawn in great detail. Not only did it include all the terrain around Han Mountain, even the area around it was drawn in great detail. From this map, the land of South Morning was incredibly vast. However, while the picture was detailed, it was not what Su Ming wanted. He closed his eyes and was silent. In truth, Su Ming himself knew that the map he wanted was not something a middle-sized tribe could give him, but knowing was one thing, and having hope was another. A little. At this moment, his heart was as complicated as his gaze just now. He hoped to see the topographic map that he longed for, but at the same time, he faintly didn't want to see it. This kind of complexity originated from the bewilderment buried in the bottom of his heart. You can only look at it. You can't take it away. Han Songzi said softly as she looked at Su Ming with pity in her eyes. "I know." Su Ming opened his eyes, but he did not look at Han Songzi. Instead, he looked at the darkened sky in the distance. He did not know that in Han Songzi's eyes, he saw loneliness. "You once said that if I remember something one day, I can come and find you," Su Ming mumbled. "Yes," Han Songzi answered softly. There was another period of silence. This time, it lasted a little longer. A bright moon appeared in the darkened sky, and there were stars surrounding the moon. Wind blew on the ground and lifted Han Songzi's black hair. As it floated in the air, it gave her a different kind of beauty under the moonlight. "What did you see?" Su Ming broke the silence and mumbled. Han Songzi did not speak. She bit her bottom lip and looked at Su Ming. There was a charming light in her eyes. After looking at Su Ming for a long time, she seemed to have made a decision. "Can you make a promise with me?" The moment the word promise came out of her mouth and Su Ming heard it, his heart trembled. That shock was not something he could control with his calmness. No matter how deeply he hid it and how thoroughly he covered it up, it was still a sadness that would be stirred up by some things and some words. Now that his wound was touched, it turned into sadness that spread through Su Ming's body and soul like a tidal wave. It made him look normal, but no one could know what was going on in his heart. However, even if Han Songzi did not know, with her woman's instincts, she immediately noticed that besides loneliness, there was also an indescribable sadness in Mo Su. You? Han Songzi was stunned. She was smart. She could almost immediately guess that there was a word in her words that was the source of Mo Su's sadness. Promise. Han Songzi did not say it. Promise. Su Ming felt a sharp pain in his heart. His body did not tremble, but the sadness within him could not be controlled. That word had a special meaning to him. Once upon a time, there was a woman who stood in the snow and looked at him with a smile. If we continue walking in the snow, will we be able to walk until our hair turns white? Once upon a time, there was a woman who hugged him on his back. Their hearts seemed to rise and fall at the same time, and the face buried in his back turned red. Can you walk in circles with me? Once upon a time, there was a woman who stood there biting her lips. Her beautiful eyes shone with a wild charm as she swept away the snow on his robes. Su Ming, this is a promise. I'll wait for you. This was a promise, and Su Ming was a person who did not fulfill his promise. It's been almost 5 years. Perhaps it's not 5 years. Su Ming's heart hurt even more, and there was bitterness in it. There were many sorrows in the world. Perhaps he was not the one who suffered the most, but if the deepest sorrow was between life and death and the endless passage of time, then Su Ming's sorrow was the sorrow of not knowing whether life and death existed within him, and not knowing whether the passage of time existed within him. This sort of sorrow that was mixed with confusion was the greatest pain. I'm sorry. Han Songzi bit her lip and whispered softly. She could not understand Su Ming's sorrow, but she could feel his sorrow at that moment. What promise? Su Ming's voice was hoarse. He looked at Han Songzi standing before him, and at the unfamiliar face covered by her black hair that was blown by the wind. At that moment, he felt as if he could see Bai Ling. It was a different time, a different place, and a different person, but it was the same word, promise. Help me kill Ma Xian. Kill him, and I'll tell you everything I saw. Han Songzi said softly. The moment she said Ma Xian's name, her breathing quickened, and she instinctively clenched her right hand. Who is Ma Xian? Su Ming saw these small actions. He is known as the person with the greatest potential in the history of Freezing Sky Clan. He was able to hear the second god of Berserker soul roar during the day of eternal creation, and he's known as one of the people with the highest possibility of becoming the fourth god of Berserkers. My senior brother. He's also the one who injured Feng Mu. Han Songzi said softly with her head lowered. Su Ming looked at Han Songzi calmly and did not speak. I know you must be puzzled. With Sima Xian's status and power, how could he injure a child like Feng Mu? Han Songzi lifted her head. Under the moonlight, her face might not be incredibly beautiful, but it could still make people's hearts pound. However, that did not include Su Ming. Continue. Su Ming lifted his head and looked at the moon in the sky. Have you heard of the great art of Heartless Berserker Seed? This art was created by the second god of Berserkers. Sima Xian practices this Berserker art. Ever since the second god of Berserkers created this art, no one in the Berserker tribe has been able to practice it completely. It's difficult for them to bring out its full power, and they can't reach Heartless Berserker Seed. That's why they can't master it. Once they master this art, all the growth of the Berserker Seed will be given to them. The second god of Berserkers used this art in the other worlds and gained his status as the god of Berserkers. Sima Xian's potential is indeed shocking. He was originally a sentimental person, but he found a new path. He used his emotions into his heart and split the Berserker Seed into emotions. Because he was heartless, he became heartless. When Feng Mu was born, the elder observed his potential and recognized him as the future hope of Tranquil East Tribe. Sima Xian came with the envoys from Freezing Sky Clan to Han Mountain City to choose disciples. Feng Mu became his Berserker Seed, and he planted love in me. Han Songzi spoke calmly. as if she was not talking about herself, but the calmer she was, the more Su Ming could feel the hatred in her heart. Fong Mu wasn't injured. He's seen Ma Xian's berserker seed. If you can really cure him, then you'll offend Si Ma Xian. Su Ming fell silent and looked at Han Songzi. He did not completely believe in her words. If Fong Mu was seen as Tranquil East Tribe's hope, then why didn't Tranquil East Tribe stop him when this happened? Could they have stopped him? Even my brother, who's the tribe leader, doesn't know about this. He thinks that Fong Mu was only injured by someone else. In the entire Tranquil East Tribe, besides me, the only one who knows about this is the elder. He won't stop him. In fact, even if my brother knew about it, he would remain silent. Sima Xian has a lot of berserker seeds. To many people, becoming his berserker seed and contributing to the birth of the fourth god of berserkers is an honor. In fact, I don't even know whether Fong Mu would think that it's an honor if he knew the answer himself. But I don't think so. Han Songzi lifted her head and looked at Su Ming with her beautiful eyes. Is that what you think? Su Ming did not speak. Not only do berserker seeds think that it's an honor, even people like me who have been planted with love also think that it's an honor. The berserker tribe is no longer the berserker tribe led by the first and second god of berserkers. This is a sick berserker tribe. A berserker tribe where everyone is asleep. A berserker tribe that sacrifices themselves and enslaves others for glory. Han Feizi won't be able to escape this fate either. There was a hint of urgency in Han Songzi's voice. Su Ming looked at her. The words of the woman before him made him feel that there was something different about this woman. After a long while, Su Ming asked slowly, "How can I believe you?" Han Songzi fell silent for a moment before a red flush appeared on her cheeks. She cast Su Ming a glance and gritted her teeth. Updated late. I understand. Please forgive me. I didn't explode, but I still want monthly votes. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 174. You, come with me. Han Songzi picked up the map of Tranquil East Tribe and stood up. Her beautiful face turned even redder. Even the tips of her ears turned red, giving people a strange feeling when they looked at her. Su Ming was momentarily stunned. He did not quite understand what was wrong with the girl before him. Han Songzi's heart was pounding rapidly. She was walking up the mountain of Tranquil East Tribe from another direction. Her back was graceful, and as she walked, Su Ming could faintly see her beauty. Su Ming instinctively touched his nose, but all he touched was a mask. He laughed bitterly and stood up, following Han Songzi. He still could not understand why Han Songzi would have such an expression on her face. Han Songzi did not make a single sound on the way, and neither did Su Ming. The two of them walked up the mountain from another direction. Before long, a cave appeared in the forest before them. The cave was very well hidden. Unless it was someone familiar with the place, it would be difficult for them to find it. Han Songzi did not turn her head back as she stood outside the cave. She had her back turned towards Su Ming as she spoke softly. No one will come here. This is a playground I found by accident when I was young. When I grew up, I would often come here alone. I've also set up some of Freezing Sky Clan's defenses here. It's very safe. Su Ming frowned and looked around him. He released the branding art and looked at Han Songzi without saying a word. You, come in. Han Songzi gritted her teeth once again and walked into the cave. Su Ming hesitated for a moment. Once he was certain that there were no abnormalities around him, he walked in. The cave was not big. It was like a room, but it was a little dark. Even though Su Ming's vision was not as clear as it was during the day, he could still see everything clearly. You brought me here because... Su Ming frowned. The moment he said those words, he suddenly stopped and instinctively took a few steps back. He stared at Han Songzi dumbly, unable to speak. Han Songzi still had her back turned towards Su Ming, but as Su Ming spoke, she took off her robes, revealing her beautiful back. As Su Ming stood there in a daze, Han Songzi trembled and took off all her clothes. What appeared before Su Ming was a perfect woman's back. Su Ming could even see the fine hairs on Han Songzi's body standing up due to her trembling. Once the curve of her back formed a terrifying indent at her waist, the exaggerated rise and fall of her buttocks formed a picture that left Su Ming dumbfounded. You. Su Ming retreated once again and stared at Han Song-zi, not knowing what to say. This is my proof. Han Song-zi trembled and turned around with her arms wrapped around her chest. Tears fell from the corners of her eyes, but she looked at Su Ming with determination. You've already seen the berserker seed in Fong Mu. When it comes to him, I didn't lie. As for me, Suma Xian planted love in me, but it was only in my heart. I can give my body to you. Although I can't break his love, this is the only way I can make you believe me. Su Ming fell silent and swept his gaze across Han Song-zi. He did not speak for a long time. Han Song-zi stood there quietly. Tears fell from her eyes as she waited. After a while, Su Ming asked calmly, "Why did you choose me?" "Because I saw some things that I shouldn't have seen in your memories. I believe that you can do it. Even if you can't do it now, you'll definitely be able to do it in the future." Han Song-zi looked at Su Ming with determination. There might be tears on her beautiful face, but there was a tenacity within her that made Su Ming respect her. "How can I believe that you've really seen my memories?" Su Ming fell into a moment of pensive silence. He calmed down from the shock brought by Han Song-zi's sudden actions and regained his composure. Void for years, chains, rejection, second god of Berserker's head. Han Song-zi said softly. She did not know whether Su Ming had remembered something, but she was certain that he would understand some of her words. Su Ming took a deep breath and quelled the shock in his heart. He looked at Han Song-zi for a long time before he lifted his foot and walked towards the trembling woman standing before him. As he got closer, Han Song-zi closed her eyes and waited for what would happen next. She was already prepared. For the hatred that she had yet to fully speak of, she could give up on everything. Su Ming walked towards Han Song-zi. The light fragrance wafted into his nose as if it had melted into his body. He looked at the woman, who was completely different from Bai Ling. The promise she spoke of previously echoed in his ears. He lifted his right hand and pressed it against the center of the woman's brows. Han Song-zi shuddered. She bit her lip and did not move. After a long while, Su Ming lifted his right hand and crouched down quietly. He picked up the robe she had taken off and draped it over her body, covering that body that could make anyone's heart pound. "You don't need to do this. I saw the love Sima Xian planted in you. It's the same as Fong Mu's. I'll agree to your promise." Su Ming whispered softly into Han Song-zi's ears. Once he finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the exit of the mountain cave. Han Song-zi trembled. She opened her eyes and stared at Su Ming's departing figure with a dumbfounded expression. More tears fell from her eyes. She did not expect that Su Ming would leave at this moment. "Freezing Sky Clan has the map you want. I can't get my hands on it, but I know it exists," she said instinctively. Her words made Su Ming's footsteps falter. "Thank you. I'll see you in Freezing Sky Clan." Su Ming did not turn his head back. He walked towards the entrance of the cave. This time, Freezing Sky Clan will only choose Han Fei-zi when they take in disciples. They won't consider anyone else. Even if you challenge the chains of Han Mountain, it'll still be difficult for you to join. Han Song-zi did not know why. She originally did not want to say this, but at that moment, she still said it. "I understand." Su Ming walked out of the mountain cave and looked at the stars and the moon in the sky before he left tranquil East Mountain. After a long while, Han Song-zi walked out of the mountain cave. There was a complicated look on her face as she stood there, stunned for a moment. "I should be the one thanking you." "Thank you," Han Song-zi mumbled. In the dark, Su Ming sat on the same mountain where he first came to Han Mountain City. From there, he could see the outline of Han Mountain City. The mountain breeze was strong. It blew past him and lifted Su Ming's hair. In the dark night, he sat alone, quietly. He did not look at Han Mountain City, but at the stars in the sky. Even he did not know what he was searching for in the sparkling starlight. Freezing Sky Clan has the map I need. I have to enter the sect. Even if I'm afraid of the truth, I have to find the map. I can't hide because I'm afraid. Fong Mu's injury is my promise to Fong Shun. It's the child's chance encounter with me over the past few years. Even if I offend Sima Xin because of it, Han Songzi's promise. She's a very unique woman. What's unique isn't her appearance, but her thoughts. I've already broken my promise once. I hope that this time I can keep my promise. Su Ming mumbled. I can't use my identity as the guest of Tranquil East anymore, or else it'll cause some trouble. Han Fei Zi will also come looking for me. In Yanluan, the tribe leader of Lake of Colors tribe, Han Songzi once said that Freezing Sky clan will only take in Han Fei Zi this time. Even if outsiders challenge the chains of Han Mountain, it'll be difficult for them to join Freezing Sky clan. I'll have to make detailed preparations for this. If that's the case, then I'll have to change my identity. Qualifications. I just need to be qualified to join Freezing Sky clan. Even if this qualification is fixed, if I use it in different ways, I'll have different effects. I need to shock them once. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He stared at the mountain where Puqiang tribe was located behind Han Mountain City and narrowed his eyes. I've gathered all the materials needed to create spirit plunder. I've also planted Sky Flute Branch just now. In a few days, I'll be able to use it to fuse with the medicine. What I lack now is the aura of death needed to create this medicine. If I use the aura of death to create this medicine, then the moment it disappears, the disaster will fall upon me. My corpse will suffer the disaster and shatter into pieces. Perhaps this medicine can become my origin vessel in the transcendence realm. Su Ming flipped his right hand over, and a black pearl immediately appeared on his palm. This pearl was the death essence pearl he obtained from Puqiang tribe after he woke up from his deep slumber during the combustion of blood. Su Ming looked at the pearl for a moment before putting it away. If I want to challenge the chains of Han Mountain, then I'll have to challenge Puqiang tribe's chain. Besides making preparations to join Freezing Sky clan, I can also challenge the chains of Puqiang tribe once I succeed in challenging the chains. If I use other methods to create the aura of death, then Puqiang tribe won't agree to it. Even if they agree to it, they'll still have to go through a lot of trouble. I can only challenge the chains of Han Mountain and kill two birds with one stone. Su Ming looked at Puqiang tribe's mountain in the dark. He could not see the top of the mountain. It was covered by a thick layer of fog. As he looked at it, a resolute look appeared in his eyes. 10 days later, in the morning, the sky was filled with dark clouds. Muffled thunder would occasionally rumble in the sky. Rain the size of beans poured down and crashed against the mountain rocks before falling on the ground. There were fewer people in Han Mountain City. Even if they went out, they would still wear bamboo hats and straw capes. Those who stayed here for a long time knew that this sort of rain would usually last for months. Even the occasional sunny days would not last for long. The mountains of the three tribes were as quiet as ever during the rainy mornings. Only the three-colored fog above the three summits continued spreading out and enveloping the area, making it as mysterious as before. On this day, a person walked towards Han Mountain City from afar. He was the same as many others, wearing a straw cape and a bamboo hat. His face could not be seen clearly. Only the black robes under the straw cape and the straw hat could be seen. He walked quietly through the gates of Han Mountain City. He stepped on the puddles and walked on the streets with the rain falling on his face. He walked along the mountain path and arrived at the stone gate leading to the third layer of the city. It might be raining, but there were still a few members of the three tribes standing outside the stone gate, taking shelter from the rain. They were yawning and selling the plates that would allow them to enter the third layer. As usual, Fong Lin was also there. He was the first to see the slightly different person walking towards him from afar. After his experience in the past, he had become much more cautious. He saw the person walking towards him slowly. Before he entered the stone gate, the person stopped for a moment and turned his head to cast him a glance. Fong Lin quickly smiled. This was the smile he learned after his experience in the past. Soon after, when the person wearing the ordinary straw cape walked through the stone gate, a shocking ripple immediately appeared on the stone gate. Transcendence. Fong Lin immediately perked up. Yet for some unknown reason, once he became alert, the image of the person just now kept appearing in his head. He had a vague feeling that when the person stopped for a moment, That person seemed somewhat familiar. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.